You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of Bump in the Night, Water Under the Gate.
All right, we're locked in. We're ready to go.
We're recording. Ready?
Okay. That's really satisfying.
That was really nice.
Good for you.
I get SMR now. ASMR. What is SMR? I feel like that's something I should be saying.
I feel like that's something that exists.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with some students the other day, and they kind of just freely provided that I remind them of Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada.
I'm hurt, but whatever.
It was actually crazy because they were like talking about how good you looked as Miranda Priestley, and then they were like, "No, but Mr. like." Yo, Thomas,
you're giving
like,
such Nigel. Like,
no, in the photo for sure.
Okay.
They mean
no,
like,
I know, but like your personality also is just Nigel.
Not at work.
I know, but like it's so funny that they're so wrong.
No, at work I do because they understand media literacy well enough to understand that Miranda works a high power job where she is uncompromising.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
And so that's what they were hinting at, I think, because they were like, I mean, like. You know, we know that you care about us, obviously, but you also like hold us up to like a really high bar. And like, I've seen you just quietly like look a student up and down, and it's chilling.
That's the amount of power you hold, and then the way that you wield it with high schoolers is truly baffling.
I started off period 5 by instructing. This is like an all senior class.
Right.
Okay. They are on their way. I have them for like 10 more days.
Yeah.
They are keen to let me know they're adults, right? So I started off period 5 being like, okay, y'all, we have an activity. Go ahead and open up your computers. Please, everyone, open up your computers. Go to your student email. Great. If you have an email from me, you haven't paid your student fees. We need those turned in. So go ahead and see right now if you're one of the lucky winners.
Yep, just like Miranda Priestley.
Gird your loins.
You're Nigel.
Sure. I mean, I do actually think like my tender-hearted spirit and my like love of seeing
Tender-hearted spirit.
My tender-hearted spirit and my love of helping foster young talent like really does make me more of a Nigel. But
I hate it here.
You are the first person I've talked to all day.
That's always the most fun day for us to record.
Yeah, because when you see me after work, I'm more refined. You've
gotten your like Grant Zoomies out, basically.
100%. I have a lot of students that just experience this at 8:20 in the morning instead, which, you know, a lot of them are returning next year, so that's crazy.
And that's their choice.
Correct, 100%. So this has been good. I can't wait to yab all day about what my day has been like. Second thing, really glad to be getting this at the top of the show. I saw this incredible thing on TikTok. It was on TikTok, but then it was like a slideshow of like memes and things.
Yes,
because I am in my 30s. This one person said, sometimes when I'm cooking with garlic, I'll go to wash my hands and I can't get the garlic smell off. And then I am reminded that I too am just meat looking to be seasoned. So go ahead and just think about that for a little bit. It's the same principle.
No, I took a little Eddie before this, and I think my brain just misfired.
Grant Zoomies was totally the right word for that. Yeah. For this moment, by the way. How does it make you feel? How does that make you feel?
Not good.
Because you also can do it with garlic and turmeric.
I hate it here. I'm leaving.
You know, you're like, oh, I can't ever use this spoon again, and my hand's going to be yellow tomorrow at work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have a fun story for you.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Because I'm sitting on a mountaintop right now.
I know. I got my hair done today. Shout out to my hairstylist, Jess. She listens sometimes. She got a puppy like relatively recently, and she's like super protective of her puppy and all this stuff. But one day she and her partner, Keith, were walking around with their dog, and there's all these like, we were talking about like little kids and like being tormented by them in general. Right. And she was like, and this little kid just went, "Your dog's ugly." And my partner turned around so quickly and went, "Yeah, well, so am I."
What? No. How old is the kid?
Like, I don't know, like 12.
Okay. No, that's right around the age you can start being real with your critiques.
I truthfully don't know how old they were. She didn't tell me that fact, but I'm guessing they're like middle school aged.
Well, so am I is
It's
a crazy.
so
Certainly stops the conversation.
Yeah, you can't say anything after that.
Because what are you gonna say? Yeah, Mister, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, Keith, I'm starting to see the magic in it. I'm starting to see the magic
they just kind of have to be.
Yeah, we're an ugly family.
Yeah.
I'm ugly and I'm proud. I'm ugly and I'm proud. The kids still say that, by the way. That like SpongeBob quote, I'm hungry and I'm proud.
I thought you said I'm hungry and I'm proud.
I mean, also, yes. I'm like kind of famously a big eater. Great.
I feel that.
Really enjoying the first 2 notes I'm deleting from my Patreon list.
Good.
Miranda Priestley and I too am meat. Okay, let's just kind of keep running through the list here. Realized last week why my eyes are so bad. You want to take a guess as to why my eyes are so bad? I keep staring at the lights at concerts. You are not supposed to do that.
Welcome to Common Sense with Grant and Maya,
I know,
where
but
we
it
learn
was-
the most basic of lessons.
It was dark and the light was like a bright but soft orange. And I was like, pretty. And then I was like, oh, I can't stare at that too long. And I was like, I probably shouldn't stare at it at all. Put it in my notes. Put it in my notes. Yeah. No,
I've told you about Casey and I's experience one time when we were imbibing in a certain activity.
Okay, that's how every single story you have ever shared about you and Casey starts. So very strong chance you might have, and I'm gonna need more.
Yeah. Well, dear listener, I'm not gonna get too specific in what Casey and I were doing, but we were real chill that day. Colors were cool.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm here now. Please continue.
Yeah.
Please continue.
But we were with his college friends, and there was one of us that was not like partaking. They were like fixing their like beer fridge or something like that. And we're all sitting on the balcony and just chilling, like talking every once in a while, but mostly just vibing. And at some point it was like, it got a little cloudy. So someone like looked over and was like, whoa, the clouds look really cool over there. And so we all kind of looked over there. We were like, oh my God, it's so pretty. And then the clouds cleared up. We all kept staring. And Casey's one like sober roommate came over and was like, guys, you're staring at the sun.
You gotta stop it, y'all.
And we were like, oh shit.
Now, see, that was fine back before we were looking at screens all the time.
Yeah. It was college.
Did you ever do that, though, as kids? Lay down in the grass and stare up at the sky and, like, make out shapes in the clouds?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
okay.
not at the sun.
Sure, no.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Good.
I have a Grant quote here.
Go, if it feels right, go ahead and say it. As I've started to recently say to my kids a lot, I don't remember saying that, but it certainly sounds like something I would say.
I don't need a Zyrtec for you to touch my ass.
No, but why did I say it?
I don't remember.
Where were we even?
I think we were at the beer garden. Yeah.
Strong, maybe.
I think it was like you, me, Casey, and Jacob.
No, we were in your backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a new dog looking for pets. And I was scratching a dog's butt.
Oh, yeah.
And Casey asked, do I need a Zyrtec? Because he's a kind, caring man who knows I'm allergic. And I said, I don't need a Zyrtec for you to touch my ass. Because that's what I was doing to the dog with like the butt scratches. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Also, proud of me for remembering that.
I want that tattooed on my body.
Someone on Discord was like, congrats, Grant, to the opening of the Denver social season.
Yeah.
And then like, I think someone else compared like the birthday to kind of like the social event or a ball
Yes.
or like a naked statue, like you're a Molly
Yeah.
Brown episode.
Yeah.
And I've just really kind of embraced that
Yeah.
thought a lot. It's been...
It's shocking that it's taken you this long to get there.
Well,
I
it's-
feel like everyone else knows that.
I actually think I think I've been doing it for like 2 weeks and I'm just now this weekend noticing it. So for instance, when I was staring at those orange lights, my friend invited me to the Half Alive concert downtown. They're a great brand. Really enjoyed them live. Basically all live music today is millennial jazz, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I say that, and like there are two groups of people who like aggressively don't understand what I mean when I say millennial jazz, and then everyone else who goes, oh yeah. There's no gray area with that statement. But anyways, so my friend had texted me at work on Friday at like 1 p.m. and it's like, you know, the chaos was chaosing, right?
Yes.
Especially as we approached the end of the work week. And so there was no response response from me. And then I went home and I took a 30-minute nap that ended up being accidentally 2 hours.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh my God, it's dark. I went to bed with all of the lights, like all the shades pulled up, you know? And so I didn't need any of the lights on. And so,
so it's
like
pitch
dark.
black. Oh my God. That's terrifying.
It's not pitch black, but it's like, let's
way
get a
closer
light
than
on.
It should be.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm like,
yeah, that's scary.
And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, this hadn't been really the plan. It feels too late now to like text the group to be like, is anyone doing anything? Like, I love you guys, but I know I'm the youngest and hippest in the group in this department.
Certainly act like it.
Right, correct. And that's all that matters. But I was like, if I wanted to go out right now with these people, I needed to latest I could have let them know was lunch. And so there's no
so real
way any of them.
No, you still texted us and tried to get us to come. It was like, I'm downtown.
Anyway,
we were all like, boo.
I want you to know, I was one double gin and tonic in, and I was like, let's just see who's in my phone.
I think I might have been actively taking a bath when you said that.
Like I said.
Yeah, and I was like, absolutely not.
But anyway, so before we get there, I'm like waking up and I'm like, well, this is okay. Sure, this is what's going on. It's, gosh, what, like 6:30 now? That hadn't been the plan. Too late to get any of my friends to go out.
Yes.
So, of course, what do? As soon as you turn on all the lights, you go to the fridge.
Yep.
And I get out a bottle of pre-made margarita.
Oh.
That had already been open and like 2/3 drank. It was left over after my birthday party. And I'm like far too frugal to like throw something like that away that like won't expire or anything.
Yeah, no.
And I was like, this will help me wake
water.
up. It's like, yeah, it's sugar water.
Yeah.
Exactly. Has a fun little buzz to it. Like we're gonna and then put on a little movie and like maybe eat some snacks and just kind of, have our own little time. And so I'm responding to all the text messages. And I respond back to my friend Ashley. Shout out, she listens.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. It was kind of crazy at work when you texted me. Hope the concert's great tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, well, they've only just started the first of 2 openers if you still want to come out.
Oh, I'm sad.
And she texted that as the first drop of margarita hit my lips. And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so throw on my outfit, get downtown. I have to download an app. Ugh, Ticketmaster. Ugh, shoot me. Actually the app, but
yeah, okay, big guy. No one has any sympathy for you.
I hate the fact that I have to have an app to get into some of these concerts.
Did you see now. Jacob sent us a shared note for us to plan an upcoming vacation?
I don't know if that's going to work with my Apple account, just so you know.
It doesn't. It won't, because you refuse to figure it out.
I have actually tried on 2 separate occasions.
Okay, I think you can do it. I trust you.
Live on air. Let's see if it works. Hold on.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Sometimes when we go on work trips, it works for Lydia and I. It works.
Write something in it. I want to make sure that it shows up on my side. I don't believe you.
Ha Maya. Done. Okay, anyways. So I'm downtown. I'm like, ooh, yes, I love it. And then we leave the concert and it's like, it wasn't raining, but it had been like misting and all the lights of all of the businesses on Colfax is open. And because it's been misting, everything's kind of wet. So it's all like kind of glowing. And it was just a beautiful time. And I was like, really, it's the start of the social season. Exactly. And then the next night we went out. Jacob and Sophie and I went out.
Yeah, I remember.
And I've been kind of touching earth since then, kind of reminding myself who I am.
I have never been more glad that I didn't join you, like with love. The next day.
You missed it.
There's like one thing that happened that I wish I had seen. Otherwise.
The hot dogs?
No.
There's 2 things that had happened you wish you had seen.
When I got the text from you that you were like hungover, and I was enjoying brunch by the bank of the lake that we live by with my husband on a beautiful day.
How long have we won't even go on for like 15 minutes. Okay, I can keep going through some of this list.
Oh, I also have one.
Oh, go right ahead.
Hi, if you want to have the best workout of your life, I highly recommend going somewhere where just so pops up someone from your high school that you didn't like. Had the best workout of my life.
Would I know this person?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I've maybe talked about her. Basically, she never remembers my name anywhere. And I'm not convinced she knows my name now. She said it once and then that was it. And then the other day I was like in there, and she like went to hug people right next to me and didn't acknowledge me, and I was like,
God.
She's just like, it's just, oh my God. She's also a coach. And so I'm just like, ugh. It's fine. But if you want to have a really good workout, she didn't even have to be looking at me. I don't care. I was just like,
Just
I will.
the motivation.
There was one movement that was like a chin up hold. And you just hold at the top of like the chin up position. And I like tried to do it without bands for the first time. And so for a while, as I was kind of adjusting, I like had my chin rested on the bar. I don't know if you can still see it. There's like these bruises on the like going down my neck from the bands that were like on the bar. And apparently your neck bruises really easily.
Boy, I've come up with worse excuses to hide a hickey. Yeah, absolutely.
How would his mouth be shaped like this? Be honest.
Are you talking about the one solid line right now? I'm not going to say anything else.
I'm concerned about
scratch.
Oh, down my trachea? No, thank you. That would be a hard scratch too.
So it helped power your workout.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of PRs that day.
The one thing that I think, because I think a lot of our listeners identify a lot with you, like as a person.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that like I really kind of get with them on is we share an attitude around working out that you don't. So like I was actually talking to a person about this last week, and you wouldn't know what I mean when I say person. Where I was like, I've never once described a workout as fun before. I've described a workout as good, but I view working out much in the same way I view brushing my teeth. It's maintenance, and it's
you haven't
easier
found the right
not
workout.
to. People keep saying that
because
people
it's true.
keep saying that it's not. It's just not true.
Do you get satisfaction when you like one of your kids that you've been coaching finally does like really well in a competition?
Sure.
And do you think that it was super easy to get to that position? Did you try only one thing or two things?
No.
Same mentality.
The act, it feels like a tremendous waste of my time if it wasn't for the exact physical benefits I get out of it.
Well,
and
like
so it's
functional
not
training.
it's not like a you gotta find the right workout. It's the like literally there's 1,000 other things I could and would much rather be doing that bring me immense joy than this moment right here.
I like it because it's very smooth brain for me at this point. There are no thoughts. There are no thoughts other than fuck, this is heavy.
That's I've experienced the fuck this is heavy part, but like other than that,
the
my
smooth brain is
like,
real nice.
Yeah, I don't get to that. I'm sorry. That happens on my walks. I went a little hot girl walk today.
You just got to come down 45. You like die a little, I think. I think you should. I think listener, vote in the comments if Grant should join me for a workout.
I won't respect it. Like, you're going to learn a lesson my students learned the first month they're in my class. You can have a voice, but this isn't a direct democracy.
This is a dictatorship.
Yeah, this is, if anything, you're lucky if this is representative democracy.
But we can peer pressure him. So continue to vote in the comments.
I did go on a little hot girl walk today, though. I will say that. And that is when I really do get to my smooth brain moment. But so there's a train station close to my house. So I hopped on the train and then took it a couple of stops and then got off and like walked to one of Denver's big, beautiful park. I just, and just like walked around and was like, oh my God, this is like so everything. And it's like, and I walked back to the train station and then I took the train home and I was just like, oh, we made it. We're so interesting. We're the main character. Like, look at us. We're listening to lo-fi beats on our AirPods right now. Like, it's just
millennial jazz.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It was just, that was my smooth brain moment for the day. And also a touch of the melanoma. It really warmed up my skin.
Yeah. I went and got my hair done, and then I came home and took a nap, set an alarm so that I could watch the big Kentucky Derby race, woke up for like the 2 minutes that it takes, and then found out who won, turned off the TV, rolled over, fell back asleep. And then I took the dogs for a walk. So that was my day.
Good. Okay. I don't remember what that's supposed to mean for my notes. I do have this. And this is a bone to pick specifically.
A bone to pick.
A bone to pick. And you were there for it.
Oh, shit. Uh-oh. I'm in trouble.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Although you might disagree with me.
Okay. Well, probably.
I am not a believer that adult restaurants are places for children's birthday parties.
What do you define as an adult restaurant?
A beer garden.
Oh.
I'm not talking about like a steakhouse or whatever.
Yeah.
The name is literally name of place, beer garden. And it's like a Saturday afternoon. So it's perhaps the most popular time for adults to go outside. And listen, I'm not saying children shouldn't be allowed at beer gardens.
Yeah, but the main event of your child's birthday party should not be adults drinking.
Correct.
Especially when they're like fully toddlers. Like I can understand maybe if it's a baby thing, you're just drinking with your friends and you bring this 1-year-old that's never going to remember.
It's a very specific Denver thing to experience.
It is.
The like, why is there a whole child's ass birthday party in this
There was
brewery?
2 yesterday.
There was 2. And not only, this up now, I might be targeting like 2 very specific families, and I'm not trying to. I don't know their names, so that's good. But it's like your children were under the age of 4, and you booked 3 tables at which almost no one was sitting at.
Yeah.
Because the children didn't want to sit on the wooden benches. And that meant the adults couldn't because they had to watch the children running around this patio full of drunk and getting increasingly drunk adults and their scared and tangled up dogs.
Yeah.
And it's like there are so many places in the city where you can drink, including our parks.
Yeah, by the way.
You can just go to a park and just have an aluminum can and do this exact thing. And I'm not saying like, ooh, get children out of our spaces or whatever. What I am saying is, why is there a cupcake tower and a piñata in a beer garden for a 5-year-old who doesn't want to be there? Because you know who does want to be there and can't sit? Adults with beers in their hands that are getting warm because you're not supposed to be holding a beer through a glass like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think this particular beer garden, though, is also kind of a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I think that may, like if it was at the brewery down the street, like I'm fully with you.
Sure.
I don't disagree at all. Like kick anyone that's under the age of 18 out of there. Kick anyone under the age of 21. I literally don't care and would like the free tables because I went last night again with some coworkers. 2 more birthday parties were going on.
Yeah.
And there was like a very, very drunk aunt who was being very loud. And I was like, this is embarrassing for everyone. But like, because this one serves food also, I can see how they got there, which is just annoying.
Sure. Yes. And you're right. But like the food's like a walk-up counter. It's not like there's like a waiter or waitress.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because I feel like when you say it, you're making it sound like I don't want children in places. That's not true. If I'm at an Applebee's,
I'm fully that way.
if I'm at an Applebee's, I know there's going to be kids there. If I'm at a burger joint, like I know there's going to be kids there or that there's potentially 2. And I'm going to modify my behavior accordingly.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to tell you guys some of the grainier details of a weekend I had recently had. And there's like, congratulations, Madison, happening behind us, you know? And it's just like,
I came here to drink.
Correct. And I'm going to now change a little bit what I was going to say to you because I'm not going to say that around children. Like I am going to recognize the presence of this young person and then like moderate my behavior a little bit. But like the idea is like this is the space for adults to say things like this.
Yeah.
And you have just decided to instead throw a cupcake tiered birthday party in this space instead.
I think the general rule should be don't throw an event for a child where the primary activity that people go there for is drinking. And it's like, yeah.
Okay, so then I have one last thing to say and then also a correction. So what do you want to say? What do you want to hear first?
The correction.
Turns out Queso Fundido is its government name.
What are you talking about?
A couple episodes ago.
Okay.
We had talked about going to like a Mexican restaurant where like giant like aquifer style of like margaritas and just like chips and salsa. And I'm like, you know, the kind of place that like they call their cheese dip like queso fundido, right? Like it's like completely non-authentic. And people not necessarily to me, but I do read the comments on Patreon. I do never have the time to keep up to it, but I will read it.
Fair.
And one person was like, hey, just FYI, like that's its government's name. And that's on me for assuming the place that I was at
was not authentic.
Well, I mean, because like I know it's not authentic to a certain degree and just assuming that it applied to the name without actually knowing anything. So I do apologize for getting that wrong and shout out to Queso Fundido. You were right all along. Yeah. And I want you to know I've always loved you, even if I never fully understood you until now. And that's a lot. I've never said that before.
Oh.
Okay, so then last note, at least for me, for this portion at least, I have so much more to talk about on Patreon.
I have like one story, but I can't actually remember half of it. So.
That's okay. We'll give you some time to think about it.
Okay.
As I pour. No, just my last comment was going to be that like it's just like so easy to love Denver.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it's like easy to say that in the spring when the sunlight is hitting your skin and everything's beautiful and stuff. But I really do think year round this city's awesome. Like my smooth brain walks around the park.
Oh, yeah.
I do across all 4 seasons. It's a little bit harder in the winter, obviously, but we still get like nice days. And it's just like a city where there are people out. It's so packed full of Midwestern transplants that like strangers are smiling at you, like you can talk to people.
That's true.
I feel like pegged this like year 3 or 4 living in the city when I was like 26, 27, where it was like Denver does have a hustle, but like kind of only Monday to Thursday, you know? Like it's a much different style of hustle.
I would argue actually like Tuesday to Thursday. Mondays, Mondays are real slow for us.
I understand this as anecdotal evidence, but I feel like if I just started timing it, I could create a really interesting case study. This city does not work on Fridays. I know because I get to school downtown like easily 5 minutes sooner on Fridays.
Now that I'm commuting, my commute now is like 40 minutes, like basically to the airport. It's like a difference of like 5 to 10 minutes on Friday.
Changes drastically.
Yeah, it's huge.
You see a little bit that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, part of Thursday. Those are the heavy days. And then Friday again.
Friday's like, where are you people?
Yeah.
Have you seen that video? There's like a bunch of them, but influencers, like especially fitfluencers whose like literal job is working out. They're like, my brain Tuesday at 11 a.m. when I'm at the gym and there's other people there. Like, do you guys work? Like, what are you doing here?
I'm so close to that portion of my life. I can like taste it. I have emerged from, and this is the thing about school, like you get through the speech and debate season, you get to spring break, and then fourth quarter is just such a fucking shit show because it's like field trips, senior last day, senior awards, like performance, senior night, banquet, like teacher appreciation day, PD, state standard assessing again, right? Graduation. Like you never get a full week. Every like, and you saw it just last week where I was like, oh, hey, sorry, totally forgot to tell you I have a 5-hour event after school today, so I can't record. And then in
talking to your students, they were all under the impression, they were like, well, Thomas actually didn't tell me about this until yesterday. And it's like, oh, so you guys found out at the same time I found out.
The first 3 quarters have a rhythm and form to them that the fourth quarter just doesn't.
Yeah.
But now that I'm kind of through some of those, at least I can almost touch summer. I'm like 3 weeks of actual teaching away from summer, which means I stopped actually teaching like a week ago. Kids are coming up to me about deadlines. I told them in like early April, and I'm like, yeah, we can probably grant you an extension.
Yeah. I guess you make a good point.
Yeah. So anyways, all this to say, Denver's so easy to love. I love the city. It's so wonderful. I can't wait to spend more time outside. I can't wait to just kind of exist in this very cool place for a little bit. And did that give you enough time to remember your last story?
I remember all of it except for one detail that is kind of important to the story, so I'm going to hold off on telling it. I am going to tell you that I got drinks with my coworkers last night, or my younger coworkers on site.
Crucial.
Yeah, and we went to said beer garden over there, and I think 3 of them don't live here. One of them,
like on this side of town or in this city?
In this state.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was one that does live here, and then I think there's 2 of them in that group that are like, I love it here. Like,
yes.
One of them was like, I think when like the lease is up on the B&B that I'm at right now, I'm gonna try and move farther west. And I was like, yes,
there's 2 Denver. Denver is west.
And then the other one was like, I think I might ask I'm gonna try and convince my partner to move here.
Yes.
And then the other one like didn't really participate in that conversation because I think they really like where they're at in St. Louis, but like whatever.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting choice there. No, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting. No, Denver, I mean, obviously you and I, honestly, we should be hired by the city and county.
I have thought about it.
Like just reaching out a little bit.
Yeah.
We can get Eileen on it.
Yeah. Aileen, say her name right if you're going to give her tasks
Maya,
on air.
cut it here. Thanks. We can get Aileen on it.
Aileen, he pronounced your name wrong. I'm cutting it for his vanity, but I want you to know.
Good. Send her just that clip.
Yeah, I will. Well, she listens.
Good,
so
good. No, that like it's one, you can fly nonstop to basically anywhere. True. You have a lot of really young creatives. It's not as expensive as other places, but it's still expensive enough that you know that Dirty Martini is going to be good. Like,
yeah.
There are times where I'm like in Lincoln, Nebraska, for example, when I'm getting something and I'm like shocked at the price and then not shocked at the quality. Do you know?
Yeah.
You know, like if let's call this bitch corner for a second, to be a little bit of a bitch in this corner for a second. There's like a bit of a bitch in this corner for a second.
Wait,
New
I can
Patreon
see
segment.
the graphic right now.
Hi, welcome. It's my Fran Lebowitz hour.
Yeah, we need to have like a table, like a news anchor table.
I really am actually obsessed with this idea.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like there are yeah, it really is a great place to live. The weather really is nice.
Yeah.
The scenery is beautiful. The city wants to be a big city but it's not. But like that energy is there, but the convenience of it being a little bit smaller like is also nice. Like it's just kind of this beautiful little area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
I was gonna ask, do you need like a refill or anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And here it is. All right. Okay. So do you remember this is the first part of the new theme?
Yes.
Bump in the Night.
Bump in the night.
Which, by the way, have you figured out what your next theme is? By the way,
I told you.
Which
within
is
these walls.
Right. Because remember that was not great for the story I wanted to do.
Oh, so this is how it works. You pick the story and then just figure out the angle to sell it.
Yeah. How have you not been doing that?
I have a list of stories, and when you pick a theme, I like kind of go through and see what works. Or I just start Googling phrases related to your theme until I find something.
Really, really interesting. The things you're telling me right now. Fascinating. Okay. I mean, I've never done it that way ever before.
I know.
Ever. It's like at any given time, 4 stories I'm interested in, and you just say a theme, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can get this one there. And then boop, 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 like there we go.
The one that I think I'm doing for Bump in the Night, we're gonna see. I haven't actually started researching it yet. I kind of want to see.
There's no way you did this.
No, I'm not worried about me doing this story. I'm trying to think of like new angles to look at Bump in the Night. So we're gonna see.
Okay.
Because I like the story. I don't know a ton about it yet. So
okay.
Whatever. Anyway.
So this story for us this evening is going to start off a little bit unconventionally. Okay.
Okay. If there's not cheese involved, I don't actually care
you
how
saw
unconventional.
what I walked in with. Okay. And then I offered you some of the red wine.
Yeah, you know I'm not going to.
But it actually
that.
does start off with a recipe.
Fuck.
Okay. So Maya.
Okay.
I'm going to read you off a series of ingredients.
I'm never going to.
And then I'm just going to see if you can even tell me the name
No.
of this salad. Okay.
The salad?
Uh-huh. So this salad recipe is super easy and come together in minutes. It starts off this semi-sweet salad with a package of instant pistachio pudding mix. Next, you add a can of crushed pineapple with the juice that adds sweetness and a fruity flavor. Now that it's the wettest thing you have ever created, ever, that's right. Now you'll need to go ahead and add a cup of mini marshmallows for fluff and stuff.
Why can I like perfectly envision it though?
100%. Now that you've managed to destroy anything that looks somewhat edible in this, we're going to go ahead and add the nuts. This recipe calls for walnuts, but you can use pecans if you would prefer. Finally, of course, most crucially, do you want to guess the final ingredient?
I have no. You could say literally anything.
Whipped cream or whipped topping.
Okay.
Frozen whipped topping, such as Cool Whip, helps bring the salad together. So this easy 5-ingredient salad includes whipped topping, nuts, marshmallows, canned pineapple, and pudding mix, specifically pistachio.
No.
Do you have any guess?
I think to call this a salad is disingenuous.
No, I think actually what you just said is an affront to my culture. Okay. Midwest has a culture. I took a history or geography of Nebraska class. Okay. Actually, have I forced you to listen to this story?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Listener, this is so fascinating. So my geography of Nebraska class was very much a cultural geography as it was like an actual geoscience class. Jell-O salads in the Midwest became very, very popular in a way that they did not become popular elsewhere because these communities had potluck cultures, oftentimes centered around a church where you would bring something. And in the Midwest and South specifically, being able to chill something to a degree where it would gelatinize required a refrigerator. So to bring a Jell-O salad to the church mixer was your way of saying, that's right, ladies, we have electricity now. And that status symbol launched Jell-O salads into their own realm of foods in the Midwest. Isn't that so fascinating?
All right.
And also, doesn't that just track perfectly into your understanding of like human behavior?
Oh, yeah.
Of like, at this church function, I have to show all these bitches that I got power now.
Yeah.
Do you see that? See it frozen in time and space? Jell-O.
That salad, is deeply upsetting. I don't think I could handle that texture.
Sure.
There's like...
Oh, yeah, because it gets real crunchy, but then it also insists on being light and airy.
Soft and like kind of chewy in spots, and then you get a lump of fruit that I really hate. No, I have no idea what it's called.
Well, let me go ahead and give you a quote to see if it helps jog your memory at all.
It won't, but...
When the president does it, then in fact, it is not illegal. Any idea?
The fuck? No.
That salad is named after the hotel in Washington, D.C. that invented it and served it. That salad is known as the Watergate salad.
Are we talking about Watergate?
We are 100% talking about Watergate.
We are so excited.
Okay, now let me tell you the storytelling arc that I have managed to pull off secretly without telling you at all about it.
That's shocking,
Across
honestly.
two themes, we are essentially picking up where I left off at the last episode.
What was your last episode?
The draft card burners.
The draft card.
There was one listener
that,
episode in between across two themes.
Wow.
Never been done before.
Never been
Reinventing the theme.
Maya, how can I do that? How can I do that? The stories I have planned are deeply unrelated.
It's the scratch on your neck, and it's like, who did this to you? And it's like, me. You should have heard what Grant did today.
Me. I want you to say.
He did a two-parter across two themes. You don't know what that's like, Casey. I don't know why he's the person that you're yelling at.
That conversation has happened. That's what Grant did today.
I'm sorry. Always
Who
in
are
love.
you? Me.
Just trying to keep it fresh, trying to stay engaged.
Shocked and
I even
appalled.
start off with a salad
and, like,
recipe.
Deeply uncomfortable. I did the first two-parter, and now he does the first like two-parter across two themes. Like, what the fuck? What is he playing at?
It was the only time that, because you and I have talked openly with our listeners about this, how sometimes it's real easy to be on this podcast, and sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have just one listener episode between the last episode you did and the next one. That like that's and one of those episodes end up kind of falling flat because of it.
Yeah.
It's tough sometimes.
It's a nice challenge.
So this felt good. This felt really good.
Fair.
Because I started researching the last one, and you kept being like, what's the next theme? What's the next theme? Which is good. I need that.
Yeah,
I want you to
I
keep
know.
doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know. I'm just going to make part 2 the next theme. I can keep talking about Nixon. That's totally fine.
Damn, I should have picked up on that. I should have known that you had more to say. Whatever.
I'm honestly shocked that between you and I and 2 years we haven't done this yet.
That is shocking.
Yeah, it's also been a while since we've talked pod on the pod.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Hopefully they enjoyed this inside baseball talk.
Baseball?
You know, like inside baseball.
Sure.
That phrase?
No.
Okay. I'm not confident enough to like explain
I want this to be real.
but I know
I want
what
my
it
listeners
means.
to be like, what the fuck is inside baseball?
If you do, you know what it's going to be? You're going to be that woman who made fun of her husband on TikTok for putting the laundry cap in the laundry machine. And she was like, TikTok, is my husband crazy?
And they're like, no, it cleans the cup.
Right. So she came on like 2 days later and she goes, Internet, I want you to know it is never my intention to prove a man correctly. And the fact that I did is such a deep disservice to you. It was like the most heartfelt, hilarious apology.
If I get a chance to do that, I'm doing it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Friends, we're talking about Watergate. You can go ahead and keep skipping forward if you were desperate to hear it. One more thing.
Jesus.
In the world of like things TikTok has just kept me appraised of.
Okay.
Out east, I believe Pennsylvania, there was a road rage incident that ended with the person being chased, getting out of her car, sitting bare bottom on the offender's hood, and letting her rip. And it's all recorded. And then also they have recorded the police arresting her. And I have never seen a woman more proud in my entire life. If you had not shown me the first part of that video, I'd be like, this woman won the lottery and was trying to buy human organs. And it's like, God, it's like 10:30 a.m. on it's like 10:30 a.m. on a Saturday. I don't know if I'm supposed to be watching this right now, but yeah,
Here I am.
I should probably call my dad to wish him a happy birthday. It's been a fun day. Let's talk about Watergate.
I've been waiting.
Okay. Okay. So Watergate is the name of a hotel in Washington, D.C. It is a pretty building that has office like spaces in it too. But in the world of like architecture and stuff like that, in the world of salads, not that important, right? And then the actions of a handful of people in the 1970s is going to make it infamous. And for our American friends who don't know, or for our non-American friends who have never really understood, whenever there's a scandal in America, we like to attach the word gate to the end of it, right? So there's like
Champagne Gate.
Champagne Gate, fantastic, right? Where it's like, when you attach the word gate to it, that there's a scandal around champagne or whatever and it's almost always connected to like a president or a politician. Yeah. You don't really see the word gate used for like pop stars.
Oh, Champagne Gate was a reference to something that happened on The Bachelor.
Oh, funny. Oh, I love that. I'm a nerd.
She had a bottle of champagne and she pulled The Bachelor aside and it was the first night, right? And she opened the champagne bottle and then just chugged from the champagne bottle and then it went up her nose.
Yeah, of course it did.
Literally her first interaction with
Your
The Bachelor.
Your body can't handle that kind of fizz.
No.
I would fall for a girl like that. I'm gay. But like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, she was okay.
So we're going to talk about the Watergate Scandal, which happened at the Watergate Hotel. But otherwise, the building's fine. You can stay there. Like, there's nothing scandalous about the hotel.
I'm fairly certain I learned about Watergate in A-Push, and I want you to know I have lost all memory since then. A-Push is AP US history, if you don't know.
I'm really excited about this episode as a chance to kind of revisit it. There are things that I knew but I didn't know, right? Like conceptually, but it's nice to know the details of. There's going to be a couple of things that we're going to learn. And I also love the frame I'm going to use here at the beginning. But before we get into it, one thing that you're going to appreciate about the Watergate story that we're going to hear tonight is that it came up with several phrases, specifically, what did the president know and when did he know it, right? So you'll hear that, you exchange the word president and you hear that pretty often, like, what did the mayor know and when did he know it, right? Like, it's a very common phrase that was said during the Watergate scandals, but then also the phrase, just follow the money, comes from the Watergate scandal. Both are being explained in a second. But to start this story, we're going to start far away from Washington, D.C., in a completely different era, in a completely different decade. We're going to start off on February 4th, 1948, with the birth of a person named Frank Wills in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
So again, those dates were February 4th, 1948. Frank Wills is born in Savannah, Georgia, to two parents who separate shortly after his birth and is raised basically exclusively by his mom. Frank is black, and Savannah, Georgia is in the South, which at the time is ramping up its Jim Crow laws into some of the like harshest, meanest apartheid state that you will see in this country. For example, because Frank was black and his mother was black, he was born in a wing of the hospital that was exclusively for black patients. That was
which one of his parents was black?
Both of his parents were
okay,
black.
Perfect.
But he was raised by his mom.
Okay, perfect.
Because he was born black, he is birthed in the all-black wing of the hospital. That's thanks to a 1935 Georgia law that mandated separate accommodations, medical facilities, medical utensils, everything for black patients and white patients. He would attend a segregated school as a child. That was in part to a 1945 law that reaffirmed that requirement as a child in the state of Georgia. His family would not be able to vote, thanks to a 1949 law that continued to raise the barrier even higher to voter registration for black Americans in the South. He would have to register with the state as a, quote, colored person, thanks to a 1947 law that specifically banned marriages from white people to any non-white people. And it's crazy to read a government document just list off a bunch of countries, continents, ethnicities, nationalities, and be like, none of them are white, none of them count. At one point they list like Malay, and I'm like, how detailed were you guys getting? And, like, this is like deeply racist, but also like, fucking about you a dictionary, you know? You said
I didn't realize you could be racist and type A.
Well, it's also like you said Asian like 3 words ago.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Right, exactly. And even if a non-segregated school opened up in his community, he would not be able to go to it because the school would not receive any funding thanks to a 1957 law.
Oh.
Frank was born too late to be drafted into he was born too late to be drafted into the Korean War. But Frank was 21 when the first Vietnam War draft was held. His birthday, February 4th, made his call-up number 210.
Okay.
As a reminder, they got all the way up to 195 that year. Okay. But by the time the draft was happening, Frank had left Georgia and moved up to Michigan, where he was getting his GED and working in automobile assembly. In many ways, Frank's early life was completely unremarkable for the time, but it tells the story of American history for that era. Frank was born into poverty and then kept there because of racial prejudice across the U.S., but that was specifically enshrined in the South. We give the North too much credit for not being racist when they were horrifically racist. Okay. Frank's move to Michigan can also be understood as part of the larger Great Migration, which was a movement of thousands of millions of Black people out of the South and into the industrial areas of the North. The Black communities in like Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, Denver, all of these places that are not like essentially New York and Philadelphia, if they have Black communities, it's because they moved there during the Great Migration. And he's moves kind of towards the tail end of that.
Okay.
As a teenager, Lyndon B. Johnson passes the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. But then also in his teenage years, LBJ loses re-election because of the Vietnam War. Nixon is elected in 1968.
Okay.
And in 1969, the first draft is held. By that point, Franks will be wrapping up his time in Michigan.
Okay.
Because as we covered in the last episode, kind of where I'm picking up from where we left off, America is lighting itself on fire.
I'm just going to light myself on fire.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually intentionally brought a bottle of wine tonight because I was like, this is a funny episode, but my history teacher brain will get too much of like
just too in there.
Correct. To like continue to like make this comedy podcast a comedy. I'll be like, no, but what you understand is, and I was like, you need to be a little drunk today, Grant. We need to have
a few
fun.
drinks in us. Yeah.
So I love that energy.
You're welcome.
More of that energy.
Okay.
But no, America at the time is like kind of in like a very, very weird place. So a bunch of World War II parents come home and immediately have a bunch of kids that we call the baby boomer generation.
Right, yeah.
These kids are born 45, 50, 55, like 1955. So fast forward to 1960s and early 1970s. Some of these kids are the children of World War II veterans. Some of them are born kind of during World War II. But their generation is very, very different than the generation that raised them and like the generation of adults before, where it's like service and like honor. And like, with all due respect, that generation got it easy. They were fighting literal fascism as opposed to like economic systems of oppression. That generation like enshrined Jim Crow into the law. So like, let's not give that generation too much credit. But these kids have just radically different perceptions as to what they want out of the world and what they want out of life. Like their parents' generation grew up assuming America was safe because of oceans, and then found out in a fun way that America was good at fighting wars. And then their children were taught that at any moment, the Soviet Union could nuke them to death. And those are two radically different approaches to like worldviews.
Yeah.
You could actually almost argue that today's younger generations suffer a similar kind of split. Like millennials and older zennials kind of grew up with the optimism of the tech age. And like Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth happens in 2002. But we're not really understanding the like dire scenario of climate change until we're like late high school or early college, things like this.
Yeah.
And then this generation is like, I know polar bears are going extinct in my lifetime. I know there's going to be mass extinctions in my lifetime. And that like difference of like hope and optimism versus like, I know we're fucked, right? Is like
that
such,
okay, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Okay,
like it
fair
helps
enough.
also explain a little bit like the like cringy optimism of millennials versus the
the cringy optimism of Grant.
Okay, but compared to the like truly like established cynicism of a bunch of 19-year-olds, I'm like,
Of me.
I'm like, you guys just got like loose fitting clothes. How are you mad about anything? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how good my childhood would be if I never had to wear a shirt that hugged my body? Like, what are you mad about? Climate change.
Yeah.
Climate change.
Right. All of the like political instability in the world. Yeah.
And while we think we're special, the 1960s really are doing it like no one else has. You have the 1968 Democratic National Convention, which everyone remembers photos of because there's like rioting in the streets of Chicago and Mayor Daley sending in police to like arrest a bunch of people. That's happening all over. It's kind of happening in tangent with the civil rights movement.
In tandem.
Sure. Tangent. Great. Tandem with the civil rights movement. And then it's in the early 1970s that the Kent State shooting happens. Do you know what the Kent State shooting is? Mm-mm. Okay. So Kent State is a university in Ohio. There was a big anti-war demonstration there. The Ohio National Guard gets called in to like push the protesters out and like end the protest. It doesn't go according to plan. And the Ohio National Guard shoots into the crowd and kills, I believe, 4 students.
Good.
And it really divides the country. There's a lot of people who are like, that's totally unacceptable. I can't believe young people could be killed for protesting.
Right.
And there's a whole other segment of America that's like, they had it coming because they were protesting this country where free speech is one of our first rights and is offensive to use for some reason. It's free speech unless you're speaking against the things that I like. Then it's hate speech. It's that Michael Scott quote from The Office. I have been the victim of a hate crime. Yeah. That's not what a hate crime means, Michael. Well, I hated it. Yeah. Exactly. No, that's like for real is what America is going through at this time.
It's so funny because Stanley is actually the only character who could say that to Michael, you know? It's just a beautiful use of him.
No, absolutely it is. Sorry, I'm just remembering a Michael Scott moment and I have to like back up to get back into the story.
Okay.
So in all of this, Richard Nixon gets elected. And do you know what Richard Nixon's nickname was?
You're going to tell me, and I feel like you've told me before.
He was the law and order president.
Right.
He ran for office basically being like as middle of the road as possible on every single issue. Like they'd be like, all right, will you end the war in Vietnam or will you escalate it? And he's like, ending the war in Vietnam would be really nice. But it's like, that's not a promise. Are you going to do that? Or is that like...
I miss when you had to like interpret politicians, dude. Like,
I mean,
God, that must have been
still feel like you do. Please feel free at any moment to draw a direct comparison. Like, for instance, we have a president right now who insists that blue lives matter, even though they have a fatality rate lower than pizza delivery drivers. But then also at the same time pardons hundreds of people who are responsible for the death of a police officer on January 6th. But who needs law and order when we're just using it as a dog whistle for racism?
Well, don't worry. I think sometimes we as people like sometimes interpret our current president or just a president that is in office, you know, like too much because you saw the interview with MSNBC.
Are you talking about when he talked about the Declaration of Independence?
No, I'm talking about when he thought a certain person had literal numbers and letters like tattooed on his knuckles, and what it was Photoshop to prove that the symbols actually tattooed on those knuckles were interpreted to those letters, and he wouldn't even let the interviewer move on. He was like, no, we have to go back to this. You think that's Photoshop? Why can't you just say that it's tattooed on him? It's insane.
They, as in Fox News or some right-wing conservative Der Stormer news media outlet, interviewed him in the Oval Office, and they were like, "Oh, great one, ring kiss. How are you? How are you liking the White House? I see
you've decorated.
Yes, you've decorated. Yes. Do you see? I see you have the Declaration of Independence up.
I have.
What does that mean to you?" And I'm not just telling you,
this
listener.
was actually that same interview.
Amazing.
It was earlier on in the interview.
It's the kindest interview question. Who's asking the American president, law and order president, why? What does the Declaration of Independence mean to you? It's a statement of unity. It's a statement of togetherness. It's actively not.
Did you see the interviewer's face when he said unity? He was like, you should have seen him when Trump was like trying to like continuously say, we're moving on. The knuckle thing. he kept being like, well, I disagree. And Trump would just be like, well, no. And then he would be like, well, I mean, I understand. It doesn't literally say that. Like, I understand. Like, it's just showing what the interpretation. But anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Ukraine. And he was like, no.
You must agree with me before I will move on. Yes.
He held his ground, though.
I know I'm wine drunk right now. But if a student wrote in an assignment for me that the Declaration of Independence
means
was a
unity.
statement of love and unity, I'd be like 0 points.
Because it's a declaration of independence.
Do you know, so I used to teach AP World History, and then I had to come up with a word for the other classes that weren't AP, that wasn't like non-AP or like stupid kid world history. So I called that college-bound world history.
Okay.
College-bound world history and AP World History.
Okay.
My college-bound world history kids, I taught them the Declaration of Independence, as every teacher in America has, as a breakup letter. Like I gave that like the format as like, this is how you should
literally
understand
what
it.
it is.
It's actively, I don't want to be in a union with you
Yes.
anymore. So anyways, Richard Nixon's also this law and order president. And as we covered in the last episode, that's like deeply hypocritical because he is committing all sorts of crimes, namely using the apparatus of the federal government to spy on his enemies.
Wait, what?
I know, crazy.
I have no idea why any president would ever do that ever.
But the crazy thing too is that like he's like actually like really popular.
That's wild, knowing the legacy he has now.
No, I know. And that's kind of also why I kind of love the fact that I ended last episode in 1972, because that's at the end of Nixon's first term. Because in November of 1972, the 1972 election happens. He goes up against Senator George McGovern, Democratic senator from South Dakota.
Whoa.
No, I know. Do you know Richard Nixon, California politician?
Yeah.
Yeah. He defeats McGovern in a landslide. McGovern carries the state of Massachusetts and the District of Columbia.
Wow.
Nixon wins 49 states.
Right.
I think he actually might keep McGovern at or slightly below 40% of the national vote.
Whoa.
Like, it is considered a murder by even political journalists at the time.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because what Nixon is doing on a policy front, and you know I'm a leftist, so you know I'm not a huge fan of Nixon, but there are things we can celebrate. For instance, one of the things he's doing on the policy front, he's creating the EPA.
Right.
He's creating the Clean Air Act. He is saying
it's crazy.
Fresh drinking water and clean air is the birthright of every American. And he creates that. A lot of our cities clean up their pollutants in the 70s. Now, granted, Nixon did that in tandem with a Congress that was controlled by Democrats in both houses, but like does it with them, does it together, creates the Environmental Protection Agency. Yeah. He also helps to start move U.S.-Soviet Union relations to a more positive territory. Friendly reminder, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the closest we got to shooting each other, happened during the Kennedy administration in like 62, 63. And so the fact that a decade later, Nixon is like, hey, let's not really actually threaten to do that. Like, obviously we have like our spheres of influence and things like that, but like...
Just so I'm getting the timeline right, it's Kennedy, LBJ, then Nixon.
Very
correct?
Good.
Okay.
Yes.
I want you to know the only reason I know that
really
is the Frank Sinatra episode. I do want you to know that. And could I name any of the presidents before or after?
I would
literally
love
no.
one of our listeners to come up with a little just like history quiz, history test based off of our most 10 recent episodes.
Okay, but then we have to, yes. After our 10 most recent episodes, absolutely. It's like if it's a general history quiz, it's just going to be embarrassing.
I'm literally endorsed the teacher.
Yeah,
this.
I know.
Not a contest. It's like me at F45.
It's like us on a calculus exam.
Good.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, prime numbers all the way, baby.
Take a derivative.
Okay. I just took a drink of wine.
Yeah,
that
is a
physical
derivative.
Comedy bit. But anyways, so he's passing the Clean Air Act.
Okay.
He is helping move relations with the Soviet Union into a more peaceful direction. Obviously, we're not going to be allies, but like a more peaceful direction. He also does something super important. He manages to get China to start opening itself up to the world and investment. He does this huge, actually like really important from a strategic perspective, like trip to China. And he's like the president that opens China. And obviously it's like a two-way street.
Yes.
China's like looking for a partnership as well.
Yeah.
But that opening will set the foundation of a lot of economic activity for like the next 50 years. And also like kind of in like this weird, wild kind of way, opens the back door to China. And Nixon actually maybe does more than almost any other president to fight communism, because he does something that's so hard to do, which is introduced capitalism into communism, which once it's in there, it's really hard to beat.
Yeah, you can't get it out.
Human nature, I think we like owning things.
We like owning things and being like, ha, I have a refrigerator.
Correct. No, 100%.
Yeah.
And so he has these like really important policy legacies. He's also a weird man. He's
Yes.
like not a man that does well in a crowd, especially if you're a stranger.
That's
Also, probably a bit of a racist and definitely an anti-Semitic, right?
Yep.
Now, an anti-Semitic in that country club way where you're just like he's on air, and this is like a paraphrase, but he's basically like, Jewish people are just naturally greedier, and like you can't ever trust them in a business dealing. And then the room erupts in laughter, right? Like in that country club 1970s way of anti-Semitic. Right, 100%. So I'm not being like, this guy was great, except for all the crimes that he committed. Like he's a complicated character is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now that I've painted this like picture of like what's going on, let's talk about the break-in. So all of this is the backdrop in 1972. Nixon is churning his way to the November election, November of 1972, and he's on track to win. Somehow the Democrats navigated George McGovern when there was other people, including Scoop Jackson.
What
I know.
is that name?
It's a nickname, senator out of Washington.
Have you seen one of the top contenders for the next pope?
No. I'm not following the conclave.
I'm not either. It's on Colbert and like all over the place. Hold on, I have to find this name. So there's a bunch of contenders for the next pope, right? Here are some of the top ones. Pietro Parolin.
Okay.
He's
What, did J.K. Rowling write that name?
he's from Italy. We have Luis Antonio Tagale, who is Filipino. We have Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Besungu, who's Congolese. And then, in case you were wondering if there's going to be more Italians, you have to look me in my face when I say this to you.
You have my full face.
Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa.
Shit, no, you're not.
Dead ass. If this man does not become the Pope,
Pizzaballa really is his name.
literally, you can't take away like Pedro Pizzaballa.
What's the name of the Italian dish that's like fried rice and it has like mozzarella in the center? You know what I'm talking about? It's like a rice ball.
I have no. Are you thinking about? No, I don't think I know.
Like, is it arancini?
No, sure.
No, it's actually Pope Benedict XVII. I needed you to know it, but I think the joke still worked.
Pizzaballa.
That was worth it.
Yeah,
that was good. Okay, let's
so
actually
dumb.
talk about Watergate. I don't know how we spent an hour not talking about Watergate, but here we are.
That's fair.
The heart of it. We'll go. I mean,
We'll get there.
You know the gist.
Yeah, we're there.
In the early morning hours of June 17th, 1972,
Yes.
our man, Frank Wills, a night
Oh,
guard
right, yeah.
at a DC hotel. Right.
I forgot we had this.
A night guard at a DC hotel and office complex was making his rounds when he noticed a suspiciously taped open exit door. Someone had taped the lock on several of the
Yeah.
doors in the Watergate Hotel, meaning the doors would close but would not
close.
lock.
Yeah.
Frank removed the tape and continued his patrol. 30 minutes later, when his patrol passed by around again, he noticed the doors had been retaped.
Oh my
It is in that moment that Frank sprints to the office on the second floor of the Watergate and calls the police. The police dispatch their closest police officers, who are undercover police officers in an unmarked police car. They are Sergeant Paul Leeper, Officer John Barrett, and Officer Carl Schofer, who were working the overnight shift. They were often referred to as, quote, the bum squad.
Jesus.
Because they dressed as undercover cops, they dressed as hippies and were on the lookout for drug dealers. So they
Okay.
would get off the streets Friday and Saturday nights were their
Yeah.
big nights, and they'd be like, hey man,
bro,
like,
you got
know,
some?
No,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, hell yeah. And they'd be like, you're under arrest.
Hell yeah.
Literal definitions of narcs. But it also means, crucially, that when they roll up to the Watergate, the lookout doesn't think police are arriving. The lookout thinks hippies are arriving.
You would think that they would think of that.
I know. Also, the DC police doesn't know Watergate's happening.
Yeah.
The DC police knows they got a call from someone at the Watergate that they believe a break-in is happening. And so they're like, okay, we'll send the closest agents. And it's just them. Like, the fact that they're undercover is a complete coincidence.
That's wild.
Alfred Baldwin, who for the break-ins was the spotter, was staying at the Howard Johnson's hotel across the street. However, Alfred Baldwin was distracted because he was watching TV. And bless history, we have the name of the TV show that he was watching.
Yep, that's what I want to know.
He was watching Attack of the Puppet People, a 1950s horror movie on TV, and did not realize
the way that history would be so different. Like, the people that plan out what is showing at what time have literally altered history.
I also like Attack of the Puppet People. Must be a pretty good show.
Yeah.
For your friends to be committing a break-in and it to distract
Back to you. Yeah. You look away.
Yeah. That's
you even turn it on.
You turn it on. You sit down and start watching it. It's a pretty good show. Shout out to cinema in the 1950s.
Apparently, yeah.
Okay, where am I? There we go. And did not observe the arrival then of several other police cars as they start to descend on the Watergate
so he's
Hotel.
just a bad lookout.
By the time he realizes it, it's too late. Police are on the floor.
Good.
If you have seen the movie Forrest Gump pretends to call in the break-in. He's like, there's a bunch of people across the street at the Watergate Hotel, and I don't think they can find the light switch or stuff because there's a bunch of like flashlights on in the room or whatever. And that's how like Forrest Gump is put into the Watergate story.
Right.
It's like a detective, it's the police, but the person across the street was actually part of the crime and deeply unobservant.
Yeah.
If he had been as observant as Forrest Gump's character,
it might not have happened.
Correct. Or we wouldn't have caught it. And this was crucial. Like the catch here. We'll get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Nor did he see the plainclothes officers, blah, 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 blah. By the time Baldwin did finally notice the unusual activity as police officers descended to the 6th floor, and by the time he radioed his fellow burglars, it was already too late. Police get into the office. They say, put your hands up. Think they're going to find 1 or 2 guys. 10 hands go up.
Ooh.
5 men are in the office of the Democratic National Committee headquarters.
Oh, my God.
The 5 men are Virgilio Gonzalez, Bernard Baker, James McCord, Ingeno Martinez, and Frank Sturgis. Really hard for me to identify if any of those men are Latino or Italian. I just want you to know they all ride the line so hard.
Fair enough.
They were all criminally charged with attempted burglary and attempted interception of telephone and other communications. When they arrest these men, they have a couple of strange things on them. For instance, they have a stack of crisps $100 bills that are all sequentially numbered. Because you know how all money has so same batch. Like you got it all at once. This isn't just the cash you have on you. You went into a bank, you got money, and this is the money that they gave you. They also have bugging equipment that they are clearly going to try to install into the phones into this office. They also have like rolls and rolls of unused footage because they are going in there to take photos of as many documents as possible. And then finally, they have 3 pens with mace in them. And that's what I want to know more about.
Yeah, what?
How do we have pen mace in the 70s and why don't I have it now?
Yeah, and how do you use it? What?
They are in this office in June of 1972 because they had tried to bug the office in May, had managed to break in, had managed to bug, but of the 2 bugs they planted, only 1 was working, and that needed repairs, and the second one wasn't working. So this wasn't even their first time breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters. They are back at the committee to like finish the
job,
work, but they are actively working. And listener, you might be wondering, but these major American political parties have their own headquarters. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do today. At the time,
really?
Political infrastructure was all different. Like a lot of it was centered around states. And so like your state might have an office, but like nationally, less so. You'd rent out office space.
Okay.
Oftentimes these campaigns kicked up in the run up to like specific elections and things like that.
I too want my own space.
Yeah,
so.
no, right. But it's like, today, politics is 24/7. You're constantly generating like press releases, media, you're consulting candidates, you're organizing things. Like there's like a 24/7 strategy involved in American politics today.
That's true, yeah.
That at the time just didn't really exist.
Okay, yeah.
Politicians had their very specific style of brand. It's how you can get a Republican out of California and a Democrat out of South Dakota.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Like they have a very specific brand. That brand is often very like locally grown. It feels very authentic in a lot of ways, but that also means that like it doesn't need to be managed by the Nationals committee. It's not supposed to be. And so they're just renting out a couple of offices in this hotel/office park, the Watergate, and probably avoiding the salad, to be completely honest. Okay. So the break-in happens in June. The election is that November. But there's a lot going on in America, and this doesn't necessarily immediately attract any attention. The Washington Post starts to cover it, but the Washington Post is a local newspaper at the time. Like the Washington Post reports on news for Washington, D.C., like sports reports and like high school spelling bees and things like that. It's not a nationally syndicated brand, and the Watergate Scandal will help make it a nationally syndicated company that you read. But at the time, it's just like... And then
it's crazy how this happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
How all of this, and now it's like this institution.
Yeah. That is owned by like a billionaire.
I will say this. They had earlier in the year, or a couple years ago, broken the story of the Pentagon Papers, which was this big report that the Pentagon had been compiling that detailed U.S. escalation in Vietnam, and a big scandal out of the Pentagon Papers published by the Washington Post. And that meant, at the time, the government thought they were publishing government secrets. But the Pentagon Papers basically said that the military assessed, like in 1965, 1966, that a full-on war in Vietnam would not be winnable. And the government escalated it anyways.
Oh, my God.
If you watch the Meryl Streep movie, The Post, where she plays the owner of the Washington Post, it's an incredible movie.
Damn, that's fucked.
There's this moment, though, where Meryl Streep playing Kathleen Graham, the owner of the Washington Post, looks at her friend who works in the military, and she goes, he's basically there to like try to pull like one last favor. He's like, do me a favor, don't publish this military report. And Meryl Streep's character goes, you saw us send Buck off. You saw me send my son to a war that you knew you didn't think you could win. And now you don't want me to publish that? I mean, my God. And then she's just like the whole Meryl Streep monologue.
That would be an incredible
so
monologue.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And so that helps kind of put them on as like, it's not the Lincoln Journal-Star, right? Like there is like an established newspaper, but they're not the New York Times yet, you know? The break-in is about to spiral. It will result in the end of not one, but probably two presidencies. Several people are about to get their big career breaks and make fortunes for their role in covering and investigating the scandal. And Frank Wills, the security guard who was responsible for uncovering the whole thing,
right?
He will get a small raise at work. Later on that year, rejected for promotion at the Watergate, and spend the rest of his life basically bouncing around. Everyone made huge careers out of Watergate, except the black security guard who first uncovered it. Who would be left behind. A theme many Americans, both then and now, felt about the political establishment in this country.
I'm drawing no parallels between now and then. That doesn't ring any bells.
I know. So this next section is called The Plumbers.
I love that.
I know. So the burglars are arrested for the break-in, and they are unusual, right? So there's a break-in. This break-in happens downtown at like the National Committee headquarters. Obviously, if you're doing that, you're not looking for money, although maybe they're looking for money. But in the police report, they're seeing what the like burglars had, and it's not like sacks to carry out money. It's like bugging equipment and photos to take pictures of documents. And so the Washington Post sends its reporter, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, down to the court office to just kind of cover it, see if there's anything. They are low level journalists in the Washington Post.
Wow.
This is the D-list beat report, but they're kind of enthusiastic about it. And these men walk in, these 5 burglars, and they're dressed in suits, and they have like legal representation, which again is kind of unusual in America's justice system. If this was just 5 poor dudes broke into a committee hoping to steal fundraising dollars.
Yeah, like that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be dressed that way.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have this kind of representation. Then, as they are testifying in front of the judge, one of them, a man named James McCord, is asked what he does for work. And he is pestered over and over again by the judge. What do you do? What's your job? Like, what are you doing? Eventually, James whispers and then speaks louder.
Oh, no.
Formerly, I was in charge of security for the CIA.
Oh, my God.
And my current job is security for the committee to reelect the president, President Nixon.
Oh.
And it's in that moment that Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein are like, holy shit.
I imagine that one of them was like falling asleep and then the other one was like, wait, did you just hear that?
Yeah, like play it back again. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments too, and this gets made clear in several of the documentaries that I watched. They don't immediately see the break-in and they think Nixon knows it, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't immediately.
No.
And the way that I think America is now conditioned to assume that if something illegal is happening, the president's trying to pull a string.
Yeah.
At the time, they understand that the president is in charge of a large federal government and then separately a large re-election campaign.
Yes.
And then also is head of his political party. And so there's all these organizations that he's like in charge of.
Yeah.
And there's people below him who he has hired who are doing things that they're probably not fully reporting back on.
Right.
And so they're like, holy shit. Because this kind of feeds into a narrative thanks to those other papers that the draft dodgers published out of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Where like, oh, Nixon actually isn't afraid to use the federal government to spy and attack his enemies. So the fact that he would get the CIA, even someone former CIA and now working for him, to break into the political offices immediately tracks with these people. And then they get a hold of one of the robbers' address books, which is a thing that literally existed.
Yeah.
So 2 men that are not arrested as part of this whole thing, but are kind of immediately identified and connected to. 2 of them, Gordon Liddy and Howard Hunt. They are kind of very quickly, the web is connected between these 5 burglars and then these 2 guys.
Okay.
I think prosecution investigators kind of see Gordon Liddy and Howard Hunt as like handlers for these 2 guys, right?
The 2 guys?
Sorry, these 2 guys are the handlers for these 5 guys.
Okay.
They kind of have a nickname. They are the Plumbers because they were hired by the Nixon administration to stop the leaks.
Oh.
So they are called the Plumbers.
Okay.
And so their job in the Nixon administration is essentially to like their own secret police, to hunt down who is leaking sensitive information to the press.
Wow.
And take care of it. While at the same time, since they're already engaged in illegal work, we might as well now use them to spy on our list of enemies. And so they're just kind of like,
that's wild. How do you get that job?
It sounds like a fun job. That's the tough thing. Terrible for democracy.
Oh, yeah. Horrible. But
do you think you could handle it, that kind of pressure?
Yeah. It would take me a while to get back up to there.
Okay.
But yeah.
In one paragraph, I'm going to say something to you, and I'm going to ask you this question again. Okay? Gordon Liddy and Howard Hunt are hired to help stop leaks. They were nicknamed the Plumbers. The issue is they both worked for President Nixon and for the committee to reelect the president. The committee to reelect the president was known as the CRP, or in some communities, the CREP, otherwise known as CREEP. Oh, yeah, they work for CREEP. The committee to re-elect the president.
I was going to say CREP.
Correct. The issue is their name is in the address book. Well, not their full name. They use a code. Howard Hunt's name is in the address book as H. Hunt W. House. And then the...
Wow, I wonder what that could mean.
But that's okay, because the phone number that they then have listed for it is Howard Hunt's office in the White House. And so investigators do it. Investigators look at this book
and go,
call up the number. And the guy's like, White House, Howard Hunt. And they're like, hi, I'm a journalist. Wondering if you could explain why your name is in the address book of the 5 men just arrested for the... And Howard Hunt literally goes, good God! And then hangs up the phone.
I'm sorry, what? Like dead ass?
100%, yes.
Good God.
According to the CBS News documentary that I watched on it. Yes. He's immediately like, I gotta fucking get out of here. And they kind of do.
Good
Gordon
God.
Liddy and Howard Hunt kind of like immediately disappear from the scene in several ways. There's also some really... The more I've did this story and last story, the more Nixon is so complicated because he was like terrible, but also like there are glimmers of like, I get why people would fight for this guy.
Yeah.
Like the day after the 5 burglars are arrested at the Watergate.
Yeah.
Nixon, who recorded every conversation he had in the Oval Office, and more on that in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Is on tape being like, well, we got to take care of these guys. There's no way around it. We got to take care of it. It's going to probably cost us $1 million. And if you can't find it, let me know. And I can help you get some of that money. When I say take care of it, I don't mean he's like trying to kill the 5 of them.
Yeah.
He's like, they took a bullet for me and we didn't make sure they're set up financially for the rest of their life. He's like, let's make sure their loyalty is rewarded. It's probably going to take about $1 million, which is a shit ton of money back then.
Yes.
Remember, it's the 1970s. So these men are like, as soon as they're out of... Nixon's basically saying to one of his like lieutenants, he's like, as soon as they're out of prison, let's just make sure they never have to work again. Right? And it's like, he's a crook, but if the crook is working for you, he's a nice guy.
Listen,
if you
I can be bought.
If you are apparently 48.7% of this country that don't care about the democratic institutions, that sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
If you don't care at all about democracy or a functioning government, and if you're fine in every election you vote in being the last election that you potentially ever vote in, then I too understand why you'd want to vote for a crook. I just have different, better ideals. About halfway through my bottle of wine, if that ain't clear.
I'm gonna go get another beer. Is this a good? Okay.
Any moment's a great moment, babes.
Okay.
Kind of in one of those moods right now.
Okay.
I don't be on my phone. Okay, so.
Did you see that there's an article that was like, Meghan Markle reveals why her and Harry call each other M and H. And everyone was like,
I mean, I could probably guess.
I think I have a couple ideas.
Is it a cute nickname they have for each other? Is that the answer?
It's like, it has something to do with when they started dating.
Oh,
I wasn't paying attention.
So, H. Hunt at W. House, and then the phone number just directly leads to the White House.
That's insane.
Is like, good God, hangs up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And now the investigative journalists are starting to piece a couple of things together, and they're starting to raise a couple of questions, and a couple other people are starting to get a little uncomfortable with all the questions that are being raised. So Howard Hunt and Gordon Liddy work for kind of both the president and his reelection campaign, which, yes, illegal.
Correct.
But because it's the early 1970s, the laws might have been a little different at the time. I can't say definitively that it was illegal at the time to double duty.
It was
as
probably
it is
like
now.
frowned upon.
I'm guessing. If not, it should have been, or it became frowned upon immediately after something like this. Okay. But here's an important thing to know about campaigns in the 1970s. They basically exclusively deal in cash. Like, credit cards don't really exist at the time.
Okay.
You'll get checks, which you then cash.
Yeah.
Or you'll get cash, which you then can cash. Right.
Yeah.
Or deposit. And anytime you're kind of paying anyone for anything, I mean, obviously stores are giving receipts.
Right.
But it's like, if a person would, let's say a person's like, the president wants me to go set up a field office in Cincinnati. Maybe the committee to reelect the president would like book your tickets, and they'd be like, here, Maya, here's $150 in cash for your weekend in Cincinnati. Right. And it's like, you had a hotel room, that's for your food and stuff. If you need to like buy material or whatever, right? Like, here you go. And that's just kind of how, and then you'd come back with receipts. Maybe, you know, kind of depends on like, or if it's just like general expenditure or whatever. They're flush with cash is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
It's really liquid. And while there is a bunch of like reporting things required, because accountants exist in the 70s, right? Where you have to like collect receipts and things. That's actually why receipts exist. Something that you could do is, let's say you get a huge donation in cash. You could do what a lot of wait staff in America do and just not report it. And now you have the official government. This is our re-election fund. And then you have
Just some
a
cash.
secret fund, which is literally what the Nixon campaign called it.
Yeah.
The secret cash fund for crime.
For crime?
It wasn't labeled the secret cash fund for crime, but it was labeled GOP secret cash fund. And like a couple people had access to it. One interview was like,
oh my God.
I think it was Howard Hunt. Or no, it was Gordon Liddy, who was like, I had pulled a bunch of cash out of the secret cash fund and given it to the like robbers. And then they're reporting the next day about how they're all sequential. Like the bills are sequential, obviously in the same batch. And I knew the rest of that batch was in the filing cabinet behind me. So I took it out, put it between 2 sheets of paper, and ran it through the shredder.
What?
Because he was like, oh, that's not good. Let's make sure no more of those bills are in this office. A highly popular president who hails from the largest state in the country, who has been very good for military contractors and things like that. They had money.
They just shredded a bunch of hundos.
Listen, to Londo the money, laundry it for those of you not in the biz, to Londo the money would invite more crime. Far easier just to shred a whole fucking home's down payment in an afternoon. It was the 1970s. I don't know what they were mad about.
I bought this house with a blueberry and a wish.
And my husband and I went without blueberries that night. So don't ask like I haven't sacrificed for this home that's now worth $8 million.
I'm so sick of it here.
You eating jelly beans while I get progressively more wine into me.
It feels right.
Feels really good.
It feels good for us.
Feels really good. Around the time of the break-in, Creep bookkeeper Hugh Sloan resigns from the committee to re-elect the president.
Wow.
The statement to the press is that Hugh Sloan's wife, who works in the East Wing of the White House, like the entertainment wing of the White House, is due any minute, and he's resigning to take care of her. But again, it's the 1970s, and like men literally didn't even know their wives were pregnant sometimes until they're like, oh, well, there's a baby.
There's a baby.
Here. Yeah, exactly.
A real man doesn't actually care about the family.
Right, exactly. In interviews that I saw with them much later, because they're teenagers in 1970. They're barely older than my parents.
That's wild.
They are still very much in love. So I'm sure Hugh Sloan was like a wonderful husband and whatever you wanted in the 1970s. And I think they had a good relationship.
Can you tell Grant doesn't really want like a committed relationship right now? It just feels so obvious. And the way he talks about it, he's like, I mean, you could tell they loved each other. But
not
like,
to get too serious, but part of me was like, was any relationship in the 1970s entered in on equal footing? Because of the deep gender disparity gap that was happening at the time.
Depends on the woman, but yeah.
And so there's that.
Okay.
So anyways, Hugh Sloan officially is like, I'm leaving because my wife's going to have a baby literally any minute, and that matters to me.
Yeah, and definitely no other reason at all.
Right. Definitely not all of the money that I can't account for that I'm now almost positive is being used for crimes. And that's what was so crazy too about, and here's the weak link when it comes to any criminal enterprise. The wider the circle gets, the fewer and fewer believers you have, you know? Like
the Unabomber.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the best way to keep a secret is to tell no one, right? Like as soon as you start to expand the circle more and more, like that becomes an issue. And so Hugh Sloan resigns.
Good.
And there's a second bookkeeper who's working for the committee as well, who is like pretty clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation.
Incredible.
And they interview her because one day reporters show up to her house and they're like, hi, Mrs. I didn't get her name down, but I think her first name's Barbara. She's retired in Florida now.
Oh, good.
But
Good
they're
for her.
like, hey, can we ask you a couple questions about Creep? And the first thing she said is, I was never comfortable with them withdrawing that much money. And they're like, we would love to talk.
Ma'am, no one asked.
Because like at a certain point down the road, all of your like grand scheming, eventually a woman named Barbara needs to count out $1,000 on her desk, put it in an envelope, and hand it to a guy named Gordon.
Yeah.
And like that interaction is suspicious. And the issue is Nixon loved crime so much. He loved charging people with it almost as much as he loved committing it himself. And so if he had kept his list of enemies short, then the number of people needed to persecute those enemies could have also been short. But when you direct entire governmental agencies to go after people, like here was a classic Nixon thing. So funny. Let's say your news agency said something mean about the president. Factually true, but he didn't like it.
Yeah.
He would have the IRS investigate anti-monopolies against you. He would threaten to break your company up. When the Washington Post sent reporters initially around to do some questions, he tried to get the FEC to force the Washington Post to sell its entire media division, which was 2 local Florida news channels. If you were a wealthy person who said something mean about Nixon in the news, he would literally call up the IRS and be like, let's go ahead and get an audit underway on their personal books. And the issue is, hey, that's so funny. Like
it's giving brat.
It's
like it
so
really
bratty.
is.
It's so bratty. It also requires literally thousands of people, a lot of whom don't like you. Because the issue with the IRS, the FBI, and in some ways the Justice Department is that these people are career governmental employees.
Yeah.
You listen.
It doesn't matter their affiliation.
How do I want to say this? Yeah, I'm just going to say it directly. Much like the first 7 principals that I worked for, I was here before you. I will be here once you are gone. I don't need to listen to you. I need to outlast you, which is a totally different strategy. Okay, no, but that's for real. My first 4 semesters of teaching saw 4 different principals. Oh my God. And so by the time year 3 rolled around for me and I was on principal 5, I was like, sure, whatever you say. You know, it's like your time here is temporary. My time is eternal.
Infinite.
Correct. So it's starting to become clear to some investigative journalists, that the committee to re-elect the president loves siphoning off money for crime. But proving that is a little hard.
Right.
Because oftentimes the money used for crime disappears during the crime, right? Like they spend it, right? And so that becomes kind of hard to track down. But there's definitely like a link there between money going into the campaign, then being taken out of the campaign and put into this like third mysterious organization where then they can, like, for instance, pay off the chauffeur of your political opponents and like steal all the documents they leave behind in the car, for example, right? Or like pay someone to bug the, I don't know, air traffic control tower and just get every single phone call made between the political opponent that you're targeting and their fucking aircraft to the ground, right? Like everything that happens, you get to hear all of it, right?
That's dedicated.
Or perhaps all it takes is just a couple $100 to steal the letterhead of one of your main political opponents, type up a fake letter on it, circulate it like it's a real thing, and cause a lot of infighting. Like,
sorry? Is that real?
Yeah, and we're gonna get to it too.
Oh my God.
They were such mean girls, but like kind of did a master class of it.
It's just giving cunt. Like,
honestly, I think the issue, it 100% is.
Yeah.
And I think a bigger issue was that they were committing so much fun crime across the board that the investigation would uncover something and be like, how is it connected? And it just like, it is connected, but you just kind of keep hitting a larger vein of crime. They're not this connected. They're like this connected, you know?
Yeah.
And it's all different people paying people off.
That's...
Yeah.
Is Hoover still FBI?
That's
okay,
actually
cool.
a great question to ask.
Excellent.
Oh.
I'm so invested in Hoover.
Good.
He's so crazy.
Because hold on. Hoover's alive at the start of the Nixon administration. Right. Hoover's not alive at the end of the administration. And we're going to get to that in a second. Okay. So this slow drip of news is coming out about the Watergate scandal, right? Like they're investigating. They're like, here's what's going on. Like, this is kind of weird. We think he got paid off from them, blah, 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 blah. Like the news kind of keeps like building and adding up. But the issue is there's actually like so much news going on at the time.
Right.
The Democrats are having their own nomination convention to try to figure out who they're going to elect. The war in Vietnam is like escalating and also winding down. And Nixon does seem to be pretty close to a peace treaty. Again, this is something that we covered in the last episode.
Right.
Like right before the 72 election, he's like, January 73, we're out of there.
Yeah.
And so they're like kind of covering all of that noise or whatever. There's still like anytime there's a protest in the street, like that's really big.
Right.
Like for instance, one day, and this was low level news. One day there was a bunch of anti-war protesters in Washington, D.C., and Richard Nixon left the White House at 4 a.m. and met them at the Lincoln Memorial and chatted with them for a little bit until his like
That's so
chief of staff was like, hey, you got to come back. He goes, oh yeah, let's walk back to the White House. And they were like, no, Mr. President, you need to get into the car. We have to drive you back to the White House. And it was like a page 6 kind of story. Like it was kind of buried a little bit. There's a lot of news going on. So this slow drip of information does not fundamentally alter the election.
Okay.
However, Nixon has political opponents.
Right.
Namely the entire Democratic Party.
Yep.
But also a lot of other people who he's pissed off.
Yes.
Who I think view the 72 election as already done and gone.
Okay.
You're not going to stop Nixon from getting reelected.
Okay, yeah.
But as soon as he's been reelected, he's a lame duck. So
Yes.
his party will be more likely to abandon him.
Right.
And then you can target him.
Right.
And that's what we're going to get to. But first, let's talk about the coverage. So 2 Washington Post reporters are on this case literally from day one. Like they are there at the hearings for the men who committed the break-in.
Good for them.
Yes.
Honestly.
Bob Woodward had tried out in a 2-week period of time to be part of the Washington Post.
Yeah.
He did the tryout, did a horrendous job. They were like, you're fired. He moves across the Potomac, works for a local Virginia newspaper, does a couple of decent gigs, gets hired back by the Washington Post.
Why do I know that name?
Because they're the people who broke Watergate.
I
They're
feel
like
like
huge people.
I know. I feel like I know Bob from something else too.
So they're from like day one. Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein. Carl Bernstein was also working on a different project that he thought was boring. And when he found out what Bob was working on, he was like,
Get me
hey,
on that.
do you mind if I spend the afternoon just like making some calls for Bob? And they're like, yeah, sure, go right ahead. Like you're literally like the lowest paid
Like
staffer
literally
here.
don't even know what you're working on.
Yeah. You're barely doing any work here. Go right ahead.
Yeah.
And they immediately get attached to this case. Their publication of information will be crucial for recreating the timeline and help kind of guide the scope of the investigation of the crime. But the reporting is also crucial because they keep getting fed crucial information from someone deep inside the administration. Kind of like in a way that they're willing to talk to the press, but they wouldn't be willing to talk to like a federal prosecutor until like they're fully there. The nickname of this informant is Deep Throat.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, I remember this from A-Push. You best believe high school Maya remembers this.
I want to know if the Lakewood teacher told you, do you know how we got the name Deep Throat?
I'm sure she did. I'm sure I don't remember.
Okay. So there's kind of 2 things that helped. First, this informant who's high up in the administration and feeding Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein information is someone that they would say is on, quote, deep background, which means, reader, you just have to trust the reporter. This person is so deep into the administration that any information about them would incriminate them. They are on deep background. It's basically the reporter asking the reader to trust that they have done the verification and for reasons like that they can't say, they can't tell you why, like this person's identity. That's known as deep background.
Okay.
But then also in 1972,
I'm nervous.
A porn movie had come out.
Fucking hell.
And the title of the movie was called, you guessed it, Deep Throat.
Okay, yeah.
Deep Throat, the most important informant in American history, is named after a porn movie. And what's so crazy is that because it's the 1970s,
That's wild.
There's no internet, which means that there are full movie theaters dedicated to showing porn.
That is something that I
Isn't
think
that
like
wild?
Yeah. Yeah.
To be like, I live in a big city, or like maybe I'm a businessman out in the suburbs. I'm going to drive into the big city and I'm just going to go to a porn theater.
It's crazy to me. Like, I can see that existing today because, like, we have sex clubs. Like, I'm not here to yuck your yum.
Absolutely.
The fact that you didn't have a choice back then.
Well, so yes and no. Because, like, they were obviously very much kept to a handful of communities and things like that. And without the internet, like, a lot of these kind of businesses did group up on, like, one street. And then the next street over was a bunch of gay bars, or that same street had a bunch of gay bars. But, like, sex toys, right? certain pharmacies for certain types of
Right.
like antibiotics and things like that, right? Like certain video stores, like all of these things that we now order online in discrete packaging had to exist somewhere.
Yes.
And it was usually a singular street. And what's even crazier is the photo that I have grabbed for you.
Oh, God.
Go ahead and describe to the reader the photo that I'm showing you.
So picture an old timey theater, right? It has the sign above it that everyone now takes pictures of when they go to concerts. And it says Frisco.
The marquee,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering what word she's looking for.
Sure. It says Linda Lovelace, and then another name that I can't read. Deep Throat, all in like big sans serif bold font. And then underneath it in like little cursive font, the devil in Miss Jones. In Miss Jones.
In Miss Jones.
Yeah, and then it just says 1X, which...
I'm guessing is a rating because there's triple X.
Yeah, but make it triple.
Is it spicy ratings?
I want to say yes, but then there's people protesting out in front of Deep Throat with signs that say like "Shut down Deep Throat."
And it's like these women with like perfectly permed hairs
yeah.
and like Sunday like coats.
And they're doing that thing that I love.
The little circle.
Yeah, the circle around the theater. It gives Linda Belcher.
What's so funny about these women is that porn was a physical, tangible thing you could attack. Like there's only so many porno magazines in circulation in a given city. And if you just attacked it limited the amount of porn in that city, it's just a crazy time socially. Like so far removed from our reality today.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's where Deep Throat
Now
gets
we're
its
in
name.
a place where a woman posted a video of her teaching like physics onto both YouTube and Pornhub, and it got more engagement on Pornhub.
Hi, welcome to my latest episode called The Library, where I'm going to talk to you about some of my favorite history moments. This is a thought I've had for a YouTube channel, by the way.
You should do it. You can post it on our YouTube channel.
And Pornhub.
Yeah. And I'd
put it behind a paywall. I'd put it on OnlyFans.
She made more money, too,
Oh,
off of Pornhub
100%.
than YouTube.
Here's the thing. If you've even once kind of liked a post for like, come join us this Sunday for the Coors Light Pride Parade, the next 6 months, all you're getting online is advertisements for underwear of just the biggest bulge in the entire world. And they're like, are these the kind of underwear you want? And it's just like the gayest thing in the world. And I'm not mad about it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Porn is everywhere. So
it's just the gayest thing in the world.
Could set myself on fire.
I resign.
Okay. So this source is actually known to Woodward beforehand, and we don't find out until 2005 who the source is.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
And that's why we...
Please tell me it's the actress in the porn video.
It's Linda Lovelace. She's high up in the EPA and has access... No, I'm fucking kidding.
He went on for like 5 too many words, and I was like, oh no.
Your face changed on like a singular word, and I was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm serious. She thinks Linda Lovelace is Deep Throat. And no, Linda Lovelace was in Deep Throat, the devil within her.
Yeah.
Very, very similar, but crucially very different.
Oh, God.
So, this source, this feels so weird saying Deep Throat now when like it didn't 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So Deep Throat and Woodward were well aware of how intense the Nixon administration was and the lengths Nixon was willing to go to attack his political enemies. They came up with a messaging system so they would never have to use a phone or create a paper trail between the two of them. Woodward would take a small little red flag and put it in a potted plant on his apartment's balcony when he wanted to talk to Deep Throat.
God, that shit's so cool, though.
And Deep Throat would get a copy of the New York Times. On page 20, top left corner, draw a clock, and the clock hands were the time Deep Throat wanted to meet with Woodward, and it would be left on like his front door.
God, that's so cool.
Correct. As Woodward said, I never understood how the system worked, but Deep Throat assured me that if he needed to get a hold of me, he could get a hold of my copy of the New York Times. I know.
What a badass thing to say.
I know.
Yeah.
Even years later, you're like, that's so cool.
God, that's cool.
There were other instructions too. Like, for instance, Deep Throat, who worked for the government, told Bob Woodward, take the alley, don't use your own car. Go from your house to a new place. From that new place, get into a taxi. Get out at a place. Get into a second taxi. Don't go the last couple blocks. Stop the last couple blocks and get out. If you believe you're getting followed, don't go to the underground parking garage in Rosslyn, Virginia, where they would meet at night to discuss things. And it's there where
Parking garages are so echoey. Come on. Like what?
Yeah, underground. I don't know why. I think it was just like far away from like security cameras.
Yeah.
You have a controlled number of people who you can like be in there and stuff like that. It's very like you can drive in and drive out without being watched. One of the first early leads that Deep Throat was able to give Woodward and Bernstein was Woodward was like, I don't know, there's like all this mess kind of around like creep and like the committee to reelect the president. And Deep Throat was like, follow the money. Don't worry. Howard Hunt is involved. Just keep following the money. Because what Deep Throat was trying to get him to do was realize Howard Hunt is involved, but it isn't the target.
Yeah.
The target is so much higher than Howard Hunt.
Whoa.
Because, do I want to read this part now? Yes. Okay. So he's like, Howard Hunt is involved.
Yes.
But so are some other people. It'll all become clear, at least the first part, if you follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Because Deep Throat was Deputy Director of the FBI, Anthony Felt, who was
Shut up.
Who was Deputy Director of the FBI for the Investigative Division under J. Edgar Hoover. And when Edgar Hoover died,
he took over?
No, Nixon appointed someone else.
And so he's pissed?
It's hard because Anthony Felt was like, by the way, I'm Deep Throat in 2005 to Vanity Fair. And then was like,
yeah. Oh my God.
And so there wasn't like, so there's
there
a
wasn't
lot
the time to like.
No, I'm not even joking. There's a lot of Watergate documentaries that I watched that didn't even know who Deep Throat was.
Oh.
They were made like in the 90s and stuff. Like the famous one, All the President's Men, was written in 1976, 4 years after the whole scandal first begins, by Bob Woodward. Doesn't name who Deep Throat is and stuff.
Yeah.
It's the Deputy Director of the FBI in charge of the Investigative Division.
Wow.
Had been working for the FBI since World War II, who is feeding information. And they met years ago, Bob Woodward and Anthony Felt. When Bob Woodward worked for the Navy, he was basically like a clerk for an important admiral. And his job was to bring a certain like package to the White House. At the time it would have been the Nixon administration, and hang out in the White House until a very specific person came and collected the information. Because it's like confidential, but it's like, you know, the fucking 1970s.
Yeah.
So like you transport.
You can't email things like that.
You literally put it in a locked box and you're like, no one else but Maya Warner gets this box.
This, yeah.
Right. And so he's just hanging out in the lobby and there's this like tall, thin man who has this like era of like importance and like education and like kind of gravitas to him. And Bob Woodward has to just hang out in this waiting room until whoever comes and gets it. And they don't have like a phone or anything. So he sparks up a conversation and they start talking. And at the time, this person's like, oh yeah, my name's Anthony Felt. And before it's all done, Bob Woodward, U.S. navalman, is like, hey, like I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think there's a lot I could learn from you. Is it okay if I get your contact information? And Anthony Felt sees U.S. Navy man, U.S. seaman, Bob Woodward, and was like, yeah, sure, here's my office phone number. And they become friends first. They've developed this like cordial friend relationship.
And that's how all your relationships should start,
a little
ladies.
bit. And Grant.
Yeah. No, Grant won't listen to me even if I tell him that.
Correct. That doesn't sound fun.
No, yeah.
Sounds like I have to talk to them on a Tuesday.
He literally came into my house and was like, do I want to try to remember the guy I made out with last weekend? And the answer is no.
Don't look at me right now. Don't look at me right now. No, but so this is true. Like, you're never done learning. Like mentors play an important role.
Yeah.
Anthony Felt advised Bob Woodward against going into journalism. Because remember, he's like in the Navy, and then he leaves the Navy, and he's like looking at a couple different jobs, and he's still using Anthony as like, it's like mentor and stuff. And it's just a relationship in the way, I guess you did before phones and stuff, where like they'd talk every now and then. And if Bob had a question, he'd call Anthony up at the office.
That's like Grant's nightmare. Grant complains when people like text him too much. If you like respond to every text message really quickly, I want you to know Grant is not interested.
Ouch. That's friends as well. I want you to know.
Yeah. He gets overwhelmed. But
you get like 10 messages a week with me.
Yeah. Use them wisely. Yeah.
I hope you feel honored.
I know. Well, sometimes I pay you, so.
You're in a selective group of people, though.
Yeah.
You're in you can get through the D&D, so that's important. Anyways, that's how this relationship starts. And then he goes into journalism, and Anthony Felt is like, literally, there's not a more despicable career you can go into. That's awful.
By the way, call me Deep Throat.
Yeah. And so the day that the break-in happens, and those 5 people are like arrested, Bob Woodward goes to the courthouse, watches the proceedings. He's like, okay, former CIA guy.
Yeah.
This whole thing is just kind of a little weird. He calls up Anthony Felt in his office, and then he's like, I don't want to talk about this on the phone. Come talk to me in person. And Anthony Felt in that moment is not agreeing to be a source or anything.
Right.
But basically in that then in-person meeting, Anthony Felt's like, if you're not sure if this is something you should look into,
don't.
You should. You should look into it. There's a story there. Because here's the thing. Anthony Felt is not a Nixon loyalist. He's an FBI lifer who worked for J. Edgar Hoover, who understands better than anyone in the country at the time the obstruction of justice that Nixon is demanding out of the federal agencies. Nixon, in addition to paying off a bunch of people, is essentially demanding that the FBI not get involved, that the CIA get the Justice Department to like give up on the whole thing. He's like putting pressure where he can to get everything to stop like investigating all of it.
Wow.
And so by the time we get to Deep Throat, we are now into 1973 and something called the hearings. So before the election, the Nixon administration is having a hard time killing the topic, but they're like insanely popular. They're going to win the election. Like it's this big mandate. They win a landslide, right? The only other person that has won a larger landslide in the 20th century is Ronald Reagan.
That's what I thought.
It's like a huge resounding victory for Nixon.
Right.
And they're having this whole moment. But then 1973 rolls around, and this reporting kind of keeps happening, and this drip keeps happening. It's actually funny that these people are called the Plumbers, that the hotel is called Watergate, because this drip of information is actually what ultimately ends up getting them.
It's such a cool naming scheme. That's good branding.
Honestly, like in retrospect, if Nixon had just tossed out some like deputy senior advisor to the White House and had them do like a mea culpa where they're like, I've been planning everything and it's me and I'm resigning, and just kind of had it all collapse over a weekend, the story might have been dead, right? There might have been enough.
Yeah, if he had played the news cycles just right.
If he had given them slightly more than what they expected, could have ended it, maybe moved on. He doesn't.
And that's why PR people are important, y'all.
Correct, 100%. Because Nixon thinks he can bully his way out of the situation, and he can't. On February 7th, 1973, the election happens in November of 1972. Inaugurations are in January of that next year. So we are less than a month into the new Nixon term. The United States Senate votes 77-0 to approve a brand new select committee to investigate Watergate. Y'all, this is unheard of for a couple reasons. First, the fact that it's 77-0 means A, Some Republican senators
Completely
vote in
bipartisan.
favor of
Yeah.
it. It's completely bipartisan, so much so that even the senators that aren't in support of it are afraid to vote against
Yeah.
it. So they're just choosing
They're
not
not
to
voting.
vote.
Yeah.
Right. They get 100% of voting senators, 3/4 of the Senate to approve
Yeah.
to investigate a president that just won an election
In a landslide.
in a landslide that we have not seen in anyone's basically living memory.
Yeah.
That's huge. And it's going to be led by Senator Ervin from North Carolina.
Wasn't it nice when like our branches of government had a backbone?
Yes. It's whole different episode on like the evolution of political parties. It's actually been requested via Discord and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it has.
But like Senator Ervin is a Democrat from North Carolina.
Whoa.
His party had just nominated Senator McGovern, a
Right.
Democrat
Okay.
from South Dakota,
Right. Yeah.
to run for governor. To run for president, had lost. And the next person that could have potentially ran for president was Senator Edmund Muskie out of Maine.
That's a bad
And
name.
like Maine, North Carolina, South Dakota is like
That's
not a
wild.
common, and
Yeah.
it's all the same political party, and they hold radically different beliefs from each other in some key areas. But for whatever reason, they're all Democrats. It was actually, by the way, Senator Edmund Muskie released a letter kind of accusing his two main political opponents, McGovern and Scoop, of using like call girls and sex girls like in their campaign.
Ooh.
And
Gross.
especially if you had seen McGovern, especially, but kind of both, you kind of instantly knew it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, oh, that's a gross political move that Muskie just pulled.
Yeah.
Except it was the Nixon campaign that had gotten a hold of Muskie letterhead, printed the letter, and circulated it.
Oh.
Because they bought it with their fucking secret slush fund of fucking money to slander him.
Oh my God.
Because do you know who the Nixon campaign was actually afraid to campaign against? Muskie.
That's like 5D chess.
Correct. So they took the leader that they were most afraid of.
Whoa.
Published a letter in his name to get all the other Democrats to attack him, thus getting his own party to sink his candidacy and instead nominate a significantly weaker candidate, McGovern.
Whoa.
Crazy, right?
Whoa.
So there's all this shit
Just
happening on,
like
in addition to all of this.
it's all giving brat. Like they think the women are emotional and they're pulling this shit where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe you would gossip like that.
I know. But also, like, there are times where, like, when I was researching both stories, where I, like, almost respected Nixon.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we see some people who, like, game, but aren't willing to take it to the end, right? And our current dictator-in-chief is dumb. Is, like, legitimately a brainworms man who's surrounded by incel men whose virginity
And
dominates
women,
their thought process.
don't worry.
True. There's a couple people, and that entire thing is just, I look at them all and I actually kind of get really sad. I'm like, what a life lived with A, company, or B, empathy. You know? And there are times where I'm not a good person. I'm recognizing that. I'm certainly no Jesus on this planet.
Did you see Pam Bondi claimed that Trump was responsible for saving like a third of the American population from fentanyl pills?
What?
She literally in the latest cabinet meeting was like, and I just want you to say in these 100 days you've done a phenomenal job and you've taken like X number of fentanyl pills from the streets which my people calculated and you saved X number of people and it's like literally a third to a half of the American population.
Ring kiss. Right. Oh, so it's greater than the number of Americans he killed because of his COVID response. That's good to know. Side tangent. We have a friend, we're going to keep them nameless to protect their identity, who was interacting with the police recently. And they were like, yeah, and I think that's the person's goods over there. And the police was like, have you touched them yet? And our friend was like, no, not yet. And they go, that's good. You better touch it only with gloves because, you know, you can, like, fentanyl can move through the skin. And our friend went, good one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why do I know exactly
who it is, you know? Oh, you're being so serious.
Okay.
And in theory, I need you right now.
Yeah. Oops. Did you see last thing in our dictator-in-chief discourse?
I'm doing an episode on Nixon.
Yeah,
it's definitely not the last thing.
Yeah, I mean, fair. So the Pope just died?
Yes, he did.
Did you see that?
Rest in Pope.
Pizza.
Good.
he posted an AI generated image of him as the Pope. Like, it's such giving cunt. Like, how is this man not the most dramatic drag queen ever?
That's it. The podcast gets it all the time that he'd be so good on RuPaul.
He would be so good.
Yeah.
He is so petty. He comes up with these nicknames that just stick. But like, he's fucking insane.
As a person who teaches interp to high schoolers, doing a Trump impersonation actually has like diminishing rewards because he's such a caricature of itself that you don't get any bonus points for artistry.
No.
Like, there are some times where you like pretend to be a person, and by exaggerating a certain element of them, you're like, oh, I guess they do that, and like that's artistry.
No, and
you know?
he's
He's tough
that
to
way.
parody, yes, because he's so ridiculous.
He's so ridiculous. But so I was on like Threads or whatever today, just scrolling, and I came across that image, and people were posting it like, I don't understand how you can be religious and Catholic and like still support this man if you like think that this is okay. And then also the Vatican,
Christian nationalism, but yes, I understand.
The Vatican felt like they needed to post the rules to be able to be eligible to be the Pope. And like in response to people saying Trump should be the Pope. And people in the comments, literally dead ass, were like, that looks like AI. I don't think he's actually posing as the Pope. And people were like, you don't. I just... People are like, it's so disrespectful he would depict himself as the Pope. And people in the comments are literally like, I don't think he actually put that stuff on, though. I think that's AI.
Something that I saw from my research that was really reassuring and will unfortunately never exist again.
Good.
Is they do a bunch of on-the-street interviews.
I love those.
And it's clear the person had not been thinking about this right before.
Oh, yeah.
Hadn't thought about it since the last time they had read about it in the newspaper, if at all.
Yeah.
And are now giving you their honest-to-God 10-second thoughts and whatever. And when you only have 10-second thoughts on any topic, it's hard to be radicalized. And so they're just
That's true.
well, I think, yeah, that probably makes sense. If the president's committed the crime, he probably shouldn't be a president anymore. That's it. Great. Thanks so much.
Okay,
Have
bye.
a great day. And that's like, God, that's how democracy's supposed to work. But anyways,
I miss it.
Nixon's out here committing a whole bunch of crimes. And I kind of low-key think every politician in D.C. knows it. Because 77 senators are like, we should get a select investigation
We should
going.
look into that. Yeah.
And Senator Ervin out of North Carolina creates this hearing, the Watergate hearings, and it's a huge event. And I don't know if you could have picked a better caricature to lead this, because Nixon he's this Californian, he's awkward amongst people, he is kind of famously like a villain. He said
he looks like a villain.
He famously said, I'm not a crook. And America needs to know if the president's a crook, and I'm not a crook.
Yeah, but like his jowls are shaking.
Right, and I'm like, and you just said the word crook three times in a sentence.
Yeah.
Like, yikes, babes. And so Senator Ervin looks like the fucking human manifestation of Leghorn Froghorn or whatever. You know, the talking like turkey chicken from cartoons?
Sure don't.
Leghorn Froghorn. Is it Longhorn Froghorn? It's a real person. Hold on a second.
It's a real person. I hope not.
The Looney Tunes character Foghorn Leghorn.
Foghorn Leghorn.
Yes.
It's a chicken?
This is going to be a commercial. Do we have the cord? Okay. So he is the like manifestation of Foghorn Leghorn. It don't fit.
Because you still have a lightning cable.
I don't know what that means.
That's USB-C. It's not the right connection. Just text me the link.
Fishing's fun, I like to fish. Doo-dah, doo-dah, helps to make a dish delish. Oh, but who, me?
So this is Foghorn Leghorn.
Oh.
And then this part right here.
Going? Why, I say I'm going fishing.
And that's all you really need to know.
Oh.
That Senator Ervin is talking like that in all of these. He's like, well, I do declare that these y'all here hearings are going to reveal something new about this here president. And everyone's like, yes.
He's Steve Holland.
Yes, but he's also his authentic self.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is the era of like intense, authentic political identities. B, Senator Ervin called himself, quote, a country lawyer. And so he was proud of talking that way. And C, like, even back then, that was viewed as this like down home and honest way of like being. And so you have basically like good old country boy, honest to a fault, Foghorn Leghorn, right? Senator Ervin investigating, I'm not a crook, and I'm going to say a crook 18 times
in one
Senator
sentence.
Ervin.
Yeah.
The hearings held by the Senate committee are just the most scandalous thing in the entire
Incredible.
world. The Senate votes to start the hearings in February. The committee gets organized. They call witnesses. It starts in May and goes until August. Do I have that right? Yeah.
Good
May 17th
God.
to August 7th. People say at the time that if you worked in Washington, D.C., you could leave your desk, walk to Capitol Hill, and never miss a second of the coverage because every television was turned up loudly to the hearings. Like you could just
I
basically...
love that level of drama.
Yes.
Take me back.
And maybe you're thinking like, but isn't there a delay? Like
No.
different networks and stuff?
Yeah.
No, the three major television networks agreed to share coverage on a 3-day rotating basis.
I love
so
that.
if you got it on Monday, you'd get it again on Thursday, but then not again until Tuesday. And so that meant the stream going out to Americans truly
Did
uninterrupted.
not stop.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that. When I need to watch what's the name of the the feed for like watching like
C-SPAN.
Yeah, C-SPAN. I wanted to say CCTV and I was like, that's not right. C-SPAN. I want to watch C-SPAN more often. But when I was working from home, I started watching Court TV. Dude. Rotate
That's
between
the most 2 p.m. in the gym ass kind of television show possible.
No, Judge Judy. But Judge Judy's having a resurgence. We're loving her now. I don't think she ever didn't, but I don't
think she ever left, but she's really back.
I would swap between like Court TV and Judge Judy. Anyway, I had a lot of thoughts on Amber Heard because I was watching the entire Amber Heard Johnny Depp case, and don't fight with me about it because
you look like someone who have a lot of thoughts on Amber Heard.
People were like trying to tell me their opinions, and I was like, "Well, did you watch the case?" And they're like, "No, I've just been like, oh, well, I watched the case.
Well, I watched it.
I watched every second of her testimony. I watched every second of everyone's testimony. Fight me."
The way you would have loved the Watergate hearings.
R.I.P. Maya. You would have loved Watergate.
Liza outlived the Watergate hearings. So many incredible details. Like they go on for 4 months for a reason. There's a couple of star witnesses though that really help define the moment. Yep. Okay, hold on. I like copied and pasted something from an article and then okay. 85% of Americans with a television set tuned into at least part of the hearings. And the hearings are damaging. And they also add to this slow drip of information.
Right.
As the Nixon administration is trying to kick off their second term, there's this information leaking out. So we start in May of 1973 and it goes all through those first 100 days. I mean, the Senate votes in February. It ruins kind of the honeymoon period. It's gripping Americans. And it's also gripping Americans because of what is being said. The curtain is getting drawn back from the Nixon White House. One early star witness is John Dean, former legal counsel.
Jimmy Dean, like the guy with the sausages.
We don't give her enough credit for how fucking funny she is.
The problem is it's not intentional half the time.
It's how I know that I did something good in a past life to just get access front row to shit like that. It's so funny. God damn it. It's so funny.
Like the breakfast sausages.
And the three of us are like, what the fuck? I said James Dean and you thought croissant microwavable sandwich.
Which honestly tracks with Lydia.
I know I'm drunk enough because I could cry over how funny that is. Okay.
I have tears in my eyes.
Okay, I'm back. Okay. So John Dean is the former legal counsel to the president himself. He is an advisor to the president. And here's the thing I'll say about John Dean. John Dean saw before anyone else the writing on the wall. Don't forget, this administration and everyone that worked for it just won a huge landslide victory. And John Dean was like, we got to get out of here. John Dean was basically given immunity for his testimony. And he gladly took it because he had some things to say. Because John Dean was an early active and willing participant in the cover-ups and illegal spy activities of the Nixon administration that he was now sharing with the whole of America.
Jesus Christ.
He saw the writing on the wall and protected himself. And John Dean is spilling details in these hearings. Like, he's spilling details in a way that you know is true because he is actively implicating himself in the shit he is saying.
Oh,
He'll be
no,
like,
buddy.
He'll say, well, he has immunity, so he's allowed to. And this is adding some really important, crucial context. But he's saying to the committee, he's like, so then me and White House chief correspondent, the chief of staff, you know, blankety blank, who's current chief of staff. Anyways, me and him are talking, and he's like, yeah, get rid of all the evidence of us spying on them.
Bro.
He'll be like, so then I was talking to insert person that still works for the White House here. And he's like, I shredded a bunch of money so that way they wouldn't find the rest of the serial numbers. Anyways, have you finished tapping the Student Nonviolent Action Coordinating Committee's web? And he'd be like, no, but I talked to the president about it and the president's eager for us to do it ASAP. He fully knows about all the spying that we're doing. Like, he's like
he literally doesn't give a shit.
And what's so crazy too is he's not deep throat. John Dean isn't deep throat.
Like, men will literally do this before going to therapy.
Men will literally both betray their country and then betray the person they betrayed their country
and
for.
also betray themselves in the process. I have a coworker, right? And he
and they were roommates.
And while I'm on site, we can only drink things that are made by the client that I'm currently making who makes drinks. And so one of those things that they always keep stocked in our construction trailer is an energy drink. And so he walks in and it like has already had 3 of them. He's like buzzing.
That's 3 too many for sure, but probably at least 2 too many.
Yeah, 100%. And then he walks into the like office that me and my other coworker are like just gabbing in, and he's like buzzing, and he's clearly anxious and like stressed, and like just like it's so clear, and he's like embracing it. He's like, yeah, I'm just like freaking out. Like there's just so much going on, and like at some point he just kind of looks at me, and I go, men will literally do what you're doing right now before going to therapy, and he like was like, yeah. I was like,
bingo, bango, bongo, bitch. I don't pull that out nearly enough.
No, you need
I'm going to say that a lot more over the summer.
I used to always say Rongo Dongo Chimichango.
Okay. Now I'm just a little hungry. I'm a little peckish now after hearing that. So anyways, John Green's saying all sorts of... Sorry, John Green.
The Fault in Our Stars. Okay.
The Fault in Our Presidents. John Dean is saying all these things. He's even saying things like, so I left that meeting with the president after I briefed him on our goals to obstruct the investigation into this. He's like, blah, blah. And so naturally, America's political cycle kicks into gear, and Republicans and supporters of the president are like, this is a lie. John Dean is trying to get immunity for something else. He is dissatisfied with the president. Like, he's has a personal grudge and vendetta, and he's lying. And then 3 weeks later, another important person steps up to the mic, because John Dean's getting all the attention right now. And then another man by the name of Alexander Butterfield. And then I just put in parentheses. Chini. Benedict the 17th. So then I just put in parentheses, incredible name.
Yeah.
Who is, quote, deputy assistant to the president, which means Alexander Butterfield is like a secretary for the president. Okay. He like, if there's a thing that he needs to sign, not like invade Vietnam, but like smaller stuff, like he's getting the paperwork. He's like, and here's your tour group of children and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, Alexander Butterfield is now in front of the White House. And I'm sorry, is now in front of the Senate Watergate Hearings Committee. And they're like, why are you here? And he is like, there are listening devices all over the White House, and they've been recording nonstop since Nixon took office.
Bro!
And he's recorded every single one of his investigations, or every single one of his conversations, probably for blackmail since he took office. And they're like, what? And John Dean's like, play the tape. Like John Dean's like, I've said nothing that's a lie. Play it. Like, I will be vindicated. Yeah. And the Nixon administration's like,
oh,
what?
Shit.
What? Because here's actually the funny thing. Nixon at the time is like, I had planned on using those tapes to write my memoirs afterwards. I think we all know now it was blackmail. He just never thought he'd blackmail himself. He is literally, say it with me, saying it in a mirror.
There was no cue in there. Same wavelength.
As soon as I said say it with me, and I was like, she doesn't know.
I had no idea.
She doesn't even know.
No, I don't.
Stupid bingo, bango, pongo.
Rongo, dongo, Jimmy Tongo.
So he's like, there are listening devices all over the White House and they're being recorded 24/7 and they have access to all the tapes. And the entire country's like, LOL, you're going to commit a crime and then tape yourself while talking about it.
I mean, yeah.
And do you know who was vindicated by these tapes? John Dean, who is on tape being recorded discussing the crimes he would later testify about to Congress. He kind of achieves star witness status. He just kind of starts to walk with a swagger because, of course, the Nixon administration's like, what tapes? I don't know what you're talking about. We can't show you these tapes. There are no tapes. Not at all. What? Who would do that?
That's crazy. That's a horrible idea.
It is from these hearings.
I would never add a journalist from The Atlantic into my chat. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That would be crazy.
And not a separate chat with my brother and mother for some reason.
Okay, pause again. We've given you a little bit of history gossip, now some real-time gossip. I have this incredible senior who was in a oratory competition. And as a school, like as a program, we're allowed to bring one person and then we gotta go. It's phenomenal. So I chaperoned, huge air quotes, one child to this banquet. And it's like this Denver social club. And this kid wrote this oratory, like kind of true to themselves. And the topic is on social media and ethical use. And I, as a new director of this program, have never been to this event before. So I don't know what the crowd is. And neither does the kid. So they just write their own speech. And we get there. And with love and thanks to this organization, it is not a room of people I usually find myself in.
Oh.
It is incredibly white, incredibly male, incredibly old. And that's great. I'm not saying they're bad, but what I am saying is the joke we had set up at the start of this kid's oratory.
Oh, no.
Where the kid goes, I mean, because they're talking about like your day on social media. So the joke's like, you see this video on TikTok of a clearly AI cat playing Beethoven's Fifth Sonata.
Yeah.
And the comments are filled with people asking if the cat's available for their next birthday party. You go over to your safe space, Signal, where there's a man pretending that they're about to plan airstrikes to Yemen. That would be crazy, right? That would be crazy. Like, that's the joke they'd written in the speech.
No.
And so we get into the room, we sit down, like everyone's eating lunch. I lean over and I go, maybe go ahead and cut the Signal joke. And the kid goes, yeah, I was actually thinking about that, but what do you think I should do about it? And I go, you say the exact same joke, but instead of saying that would be crazy, right? You just go, thanks, Dad. Because I'm good at my job. Okay. And this kid's like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then we listen to the first speaker who tells like a slightly progressive joke and gets like a chuckle out of the crowd. And then me and the kid don't even say anything. We just like kind of both reach under the table and like our pinkies touch for a second. And that was our way of communicating with each other. Go ahead and put that joke back in. Yeah. I think we're in a good room right now. I think this is the room where it's okay. Happen.
I think it'll be okay.
I think one of these men took public transit here today.
Hey. I know at least one of them did.
Yeah, 100. Well, no, it was. But it was still a great time. So, this is so funny. Okay. We're getting very close to the end. I'm like kind of taking like
I'm sat. I'm sitting.
I'm drinking a beer. Enjoying this. Good. Okay. I hope you are.
I love the gossip.
This is from this hearing and these witnesses. We get the line, what did the president know and when did we know it? It becomes this huge social event. Johnny Carson, famous host of the Late Show or the Tonight Show, has this joke. He goes, there's this new doll out called Wanda Watergate. Anytime she has a leak, she tries to cover it up.
That's a phenomenal ad for tampons.
I mean, I wouldn't know. It's super gross. Original sin. I don't know. New Pope. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm getting an IUD in a little bit, and I'm scared.
Never gonna be Pope.
Never gonna get him. Never gonna get him.
Gotta
catch them all.
Okay, so also during these hearings, the American public learns that President Nixon has a list of people that he doesn't like. That list of people is officially called List of Political Enemies.
I fucking can't. Like, at least be fun.
There's this one incredible moment caught on tape where this journalist is like on tape handed live this list of political enemies of 25 people, and he gets to number 17 and it's him. he's like live on air. He goes, "I'm live outside of the Capitol, reporting live, and we're getting reports of an enemies list, and my producer has just handed me this list. Number 1, every Democrat in this country," right? Like the list is, and he's just reading it up.
It's like,
is him.
Does he say his name or does he just say me?
You could see he like blinks 3 times and chooses to go all robot analog and just says the name and doesn't make any connection that he, according to the president, is an enemy of the state.
That's beautiful.
So a lot of times in moments like this...
Wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
Imagine that man telling that story at a bar or like at a dinner party now.
Imagine me being able to tell that story
Imagine
at a bar.
that as like your granddad. Like, that's got to be such a good story. Imagine their grandchildren are like, "Oh, we've heard this story so many times."
My granddad was an enemy of the state at one point.
Yeah.
And that state was the state of fear that that Richard Nixon cultivated.
Yeah.
So at a lot of times in moments like this, I hand typed every single word in tonight's episode, which is crazy. Because every now and then I will go back to the script and I'll be like, wait, is this just the middle of an article that I copied? And I'm like, no, I wrote this. I'm supposed to read this right now. And that's why I can't do bullet points. I need to trust what's on my
shocking
screen.
I can't find where I am. And even because I go through your notes now when I'm editing to make the sections. And I'm like, who the fuck is this?
Great. It's just how I've always done
it's
every
wild,
episode.
Especially because sometimes you riff a little bit and you
100%.
improv. And it's like how you're reading and also interpreting at the same time. It's wild.
It's how I teach.
I just need
This is funny, but I know what the next station is. I know where I need to pull into.
That's crazy.
So a lot of times in moments like this, the news frenzy ends up being about the cover-up, the efforts that went into like hiding the information, that like the cover-up itself ends up being the big deal.
Okay, yeah.
In Watergate, the crimes are also a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's not just that you did one small kind of bad thing you don't want people to know about and then committed a bunch of felonies to hide it. You committed several felonies and then you were like, more felonies. Let's hide the felonies. So what about the efforts that went in order that efforts that went to in order to ensure that the information that is being leaked doesn't continue to get leaked. And we love all of this because we love gossip, and that's all history is. But these people committed real crimes that really did shock the American people. This enemies list was one of them. They had targeted media members, activists, even private citizens that were influential and critical of Nixon. Even decades later, several of these political operatives don't seem to be all that sad or remorseful for what they did. They just be like, yeah, and then we spread vicious rumors about prostitutes in the Muskie campaign.
I've listened to you talk to me about rumors that you have like vaguely implied to that you told students.
I'm always in the right.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you can't stop a rumor about smelling bad.
Here's how proud I was of that. We worked that into a different kid's introduction.
Good.
It's an attention-getting device for a whole different speech now.
That's phenomenal.
Thought it was clever.
Yeah. Listen, fair enough.
But for the real, these people committed real crimes.
Yeah.
And kind of like across the board, like tax fraud, money embezzlement, intimidation.
But also gossip.
Correct. Also, though, obstruction of justice, which is a big one. So all of this is coming out. Suddenly, there is a special prosecutor looking into the matters too. Like, you can't have all these hearings happening on Capitol Hill and not have the Justice Department, that is supposed to be at least somewhat removed from the situation, investigate things. But the tough thing is, the Justice Department is headed by the Attorney General, who is a political appointee. And in this case, the most corrupt political appointee in American history, like Richard Nixon 2.0, John Marshall.
Yeah.
So this is coming out. Everyone is like, release the tapes. And the president is like, absolutely not going to release those tapes because of national security reasons. And
but
also,
you were recording them for your biography, so that's cool.
Right. Like I'm allowed to hear him. You guys are definitely not allowed to hear him. And this prosecutor is really pesky. And so then we get to an event known as the Saturday Night Massacre in October of 1973. We're not even a full year removed from his election night. Not inauguration, which is in January. Election night is November 72. We're in October of 73. Nixon is firing the Attorney General, the official Deputy Attorney General. So not Deep Throat, because our Deep Throat is Deputy Attorney General of Investigations.
Our Deep Throat.
Yeah. Nosotros. Is like... he's like just kind of like right below the like chopping block. He's not the number 2. I mean, he's high up, but he's not like the number 2. So he fires the Attorney General. He fires the Deputy Attorney General, and Richard Nixon fires the special prosecutor looking into the entire thing. Happens on a Saturday.
It's just such a red flag.
And that's where it gets its name, the Saturday Night Massacre. It is, by the way, yep, you're right, the exact thing, one of the things Trump did in his first administration. I don't know if you remember this. Jeff Sessions used to be Attorney General for a little bit.
Yep.
And then when he refused to kill favorable investigations into the Trump administration, was fired with a bunch of other people.
Don't worry, we're all bowing down, kissing the ring, kissing his ass.
Which is tough now for the next thing I'm going to say. Today's American public is not as good as the one in the 1970s. Because when that happened, Nixon was kind of hoping that like, oh, sure, it'll be like a tough news cycle, but they'll move on.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing can finally die. Right, exactly. It scares the shit out of Americans in the 1970s. Because what Nixon did was he sent the FBI into the Justice Department. And they're very similar, but they're not the exact same organizations.
Yeah.
So Americans rightfully kind of recognize it. The president utilized one police force he had control over
another one.
to investigate another.
That he doesn't have control over.
That he doesn't have as much control over as he wanted to.
Yeah.
Or thought he had control over, isn't getting the results he wanted. And so now he's going to use his own special police force to do what he wants. Many people rightfully view it as like the beginning of a coup. And a lot of journalists, as soon as they find out that he directed governmental agencies to do this, they're like, are we a step away from the military? Like, where does Nixon stop in his use of governmental agencies to enforce his own personal agenda?
I hate it here.
Meanwhile, the Nixon administration is like, don't worry, we've listened to them all. There's nothing on the tapes. But also, here's one tape to prove that there's nothing on it.
Oh, Jesus.
That is heavily
I do remember
edited.
this.
And you'd be surprised. There's 17 minutes of it even deleted because they're actually, it's so crazy. It's actually super easy to delete information off of these tapes. And they have like one of Nixon's secretary being like, that's right. Like, I accidentally deleted it. So the judge recreates her setup in the White House. And they're like, show me how it's, quote, super easy to accidentally delete 17 minutes of footage. And she's like, oh, well, I like reach for the phone. And then I'm like, oh, whoops. And he's like, lies. That's you intentionally deleted this information.
Yes!
That was not accidental. And the Nixon administration's like, fuck.
You didn't believe the stupid woman.
No, exactly. We sent it to a no-name woman who everyone loves.
Yeah.
And
no one dislikes her. I've talked to everyone.
Right, exactly. Everyone loves her. Yeah. We thought that was going to work. That really gagged you there. Turns out no.
Yeah.
And so that goes from fall of 73 into winter of 74, like January, February 74. And then the pressures continuing to mount. Americans aren't forgiving it. Nixon's popularity is starting to tank because Americans are like, he needs to resign to America doesn't even have officially confirmed evidence for what they suspect, but everyone kind of knows where this is going. And they're like, they need to resign. And so then in April of 74, Nixon's like, great news. We've done you all a favor. We typed up a transcript of the tapes.
The fuck
so
up.
That way you don't have to listen to all of them.
We want to listen to them.
He addresses the nation with like this pile of binders.
It's almost like coming into the Rose Garden with a poster board of like bad math. But that's like a completely
Correct.
unrelated thing.
For Liberation Day,
Yeah.
I feel really liberated right now.
I feel very liberated. I don't know about you.
All I can afford is to eat out once a week.
Yeah.
And then groceries. Because I like expensive groceries. But like, you understand what I'm saying. There's other, I cut in a lot of, anyways. So he's like, honestly, he's giving this address to the nation with this pile of binders like he's in 8th grade classroom and they're trying to teach the kids organizational skills. And he's like, great news. Here's all these binders with the transcripts. And the transcripts, clearly aren't full.
Oh, yeah.
And even in the middle of conversations that are there, they'll be like, audio becomes unintelligible or whatever.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Instead of like satisfying the American public.
What intern had to do that?
I know. What like, how many hours did the American taxpayer pay for that to happen? Because instead of helping quiet fears, Americans are like, oh, fuck, the tapes are really bad, huh?
Yeah.
If this is what you're giving us, holy shit, how bad are the tapes? Oh my God, you made transcripts and a lot of them. Oh my God.
Oh, shit.
Instead of it like helping quiet things down, they're like, we definitely need them now, man. You read that wrong. You read that so wrong.
It's like a kid continuing to tell lie after lie after lie, and you know how bad it is based off of how many lies they tell.
In our modern lens, it almost feels like an episode of I Think You Should Leave.
It
like,
really does.
It's so hilariously, like, they're just like, you know.
I have no idea who that guy is.
And Nixon's like, okay, April 1974. Nixon releases transcripts of what is on the tapes, and it's so clearly a cover-up. It does more harm than good. He basically wrote a play inspired by real events. It was like, I need to get back to some of these notes because I know I was getting sassy towards the end of this episode.
Hell yeah.
And so then July of that year, the Supreme Court rules 8-0 that the Nixon administration has to release the tapes. And he does.
Whoa.
LOL. Sorry, the version I came out with was so not true. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the transcripts were my version of the tapes.
And I thought you would appreciate my interpretation.
And now you get kind of also my version of the tapes, but now just the full tapes of just me. And shout out to them for not tampering with them. I mean, maybe they did a little bit. I mean, I guess we don't know how much they tampered with them, but if they did tamper with them, they didn't tamper with them nearly enough.
Or the crimes that he did get like called out for are not as bad as the other ones, which is even more concerning.
Because the tapes get leaked. I mean, not leaked, but finally released by the Supreme Court. They're immediately consumed by the news media.
Of course.
They find almost instantly the smoking gun, and that's what newspaper headlines lead with the next couple of days afterwards. They're like, we've found the smoking gun.
I love the idea that there's an intern in the White House, theoretically, in my little world, that had to go through and transcribe the tapes. And then potentially another intern to go through and remove information from said transcript. And then an intern at each of the news media agencies that, of course, had to read
all
those transcripts. And then those same interns had to listen to all of the tapes.
And the future that Silicon Valley wants, it's AI doing all of that work. And I don't want that kind of future.
I want interns traumatized.
I want the American taxpayer paying for wings and beer after a crazy night of listening to negotiations over the EPA, which are not at all related to a scandal, but was something that was discussed in the Oval Office. And they have to be like, not only should we clean up the air, but let's also go ahead and like charge all of the liberals with dissent. Like just in case Nixon throws a fast one, like I have to listen to this conversation, which you know they did.
Yeah, they had to.
It might sound like a conversation over energy independence, but at any moment he could threaten to imprison a Washington Post journalist.
And then maybe send them to El Salvador.
What I actually think is really tough is because it's all literal tapes and not audio files, they're listening at 1.0 speed. They're not even doing 1.25.
No! Oh my God.
And Richard Nixon speaks in a very deliberate manner, you know, and like kind of
all of that like old timey voice too.
That classic American diction that gives him total vocal control that takes forever to get to the point.
Yeah,
I knew you'd appreciate this.
It's beautiful. I love thinking about the logistics of stupid little events like this.
So the newspapers run the headline, "We found the smoking gun." And they find so much. But like the real damaging thing is when Nixon is like, we got to get this FBI investigation to stop. So here's what we're going to do. Outwardly, we're going to look like we're fully compliant. Internally, we're going to be fully uncompliant, like criminally uncompliant. Burn all the evidence, destroy everything, reject request for information. I'm going to fire the guys investigating us.
Good.
We're going to obstruct the fuck out of this investigation. And that is a crime. That's a crime. That's a crime. Even when the president does it.
It's a crime.
It's a crime. It's a crime. You can't enforce the law and be above the law. It's like
But no, the Supreme Court's actually just a suggestion.
It's a logical fallacy to think that you could be so good you're immune from the rules that you're trying to enforce. Anyways,
I'm seeing no parallels once again.
The final chapter, which is funny because I actually labeled this "The Dam Starts to Break," but I really should have named this "The Final Chapter." As soon as that happens, there is a vote in the House committee to recommend impeachment.
Good.
The vote is not unanimous, but it's clearly bipartisan. Goes to the House. The Senate is now preparing for a trial because the way impeachment works in the United States, the House has to vote to impeach. Like the House has to be like, we think they should impeach. But then the Senate actually needs to hold a trial to find the person guilty. And so if A, the House does it, like does the, yes, there should be impeachment. And then B, the Senate holds a trial and says, yes, they're guilty. Then the president's impeached. Removed.
And that's how Donald Trump was impeached and then was still president.
Correct. Because the House, controlled by the Democrats, was like, that was bad, and that was like, you've committed several crimes, like an obstruction of justice. And the Senate, controlled by the Republicans, were like, I don't know what you're talking about. And
that wasn't obstruction of anything.
Right.
We know all.
It was actually patriotism.
Yeah. Have you thought about that?
Have you thought about that?
That's actually freedom of speech.
And as you're thinking about that, have you thought about buying the bicentennial Trump coin, now available for, or whatever fucking crap he's hawking right now?
Or supporting the U.S. government by paying for a citizenship for $5 million.
Did you know that all of our foreign policy initiatives have sunk the U.S. bond market? Buy bonds now.
Yeah.
What are we, fighting the Nazis? Yeah. Get out of here. I'm not going to buy bonds. I'm going to invest in the stock market. I'm an American.
The Nazis.
That's so true. I'm a little wine drunk. I'm having a great time though. Okay. So the House votes, sending it to the full House. House is like the whole thing's happening. Senator Barry Goldwater, senator from Arizona, goes to Richard Nixon to go talk to him. Senator Barry Goldwater had been the Republican nominee for president in 1964, who lost horrifically to Lyndon B. Johnson. Here's how bad he lost. Lyndon B. Johnson won Nebraska. like horrifically lost to Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater is like a stark conservative.
Yeah.
And Nixon is talking with Goldwater and he's like, yeah, my golf game's good and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then eventually Nixon looks at Goldwater and goes, well, Barry, what do you think my odds are in the Senate? What do you think? What do you think it is? And Goldwater looks at him and goes, Mr. President, you have 4 votes and I am not one of them. Like there are 4 people supporting you and that does not include this man.
That's such a badass thing to say.
I know. You see sometimes and you're like, fuck, I was born to be dramatic because that's so good.
That's so good.
And so before the Senate can actually convict, Nixon sees the writing on the wall. And on August 8th of 1974, less than 2 years after a landslide victory, Nixon announces to the country that he'll be stepping down from the presidency.
I resign!
Effective noon tomorrow. And, and Vice President Ford will take over. The next morning, August 9th, Nixon gives a speech to the White House staff. And what's really interesting is the White House staff under Nixon seemed full of like true believers. And Nixon gives this 20-minute farewell speech to the White House staff that included his like political operatives and appointees, but also like the people that helped run the House and like the East Wing and things like that. And listener, I grabbed a portion of the speech.
Oh, yes.
Nixon's giving the speech in the backdrop of being the first American president to ever resign. He is giving the speech. He resigned because Republicans no longer supported him. That was really big.
Yeah.
He is more isolated than ever. but has also just dealt with the fact that like he won a landslide re-election. His daughter was married at the White House, one of the first marriages in a while. He was wildly popular a year and a half ago. And also like, and I'm sure in like Nixon's mind, he had committed so many worse crimes than Watergate.
Yeah.
For Watergate to be what brings him down is crazy.
That's fair, yeah.
And for part of it to be because he taped himself.
Yeah.
That he is
to get
at
blackmail on other people.
Yeah. But I think he views it as kind of his own unforced error cost him the White House. He will say years later in an interview, he was asked, President Nixon, do you feel like you owe the American public more of an apology? And President Nixon was like, to give up the White House, to give up being president
was the apology,
is a more meaningful apology than any American politician has ever given America, ever. And nothing I say afterwards could be more meaningful than me resigning the presidency. And I'm like, you're a fucking crook, but damn, that's poetic.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, shit. Yeah, I mean, like,
has anyone showed Trump that one? I mean, we've been showing him all of these archaic laws. Can we show him some speeches?
Here's the question I want to ask. When was the last time JD Vance visited Trump?
Yeah.
Those who know. No, good. That's empty. That's
Good.
a whole bottle empty.
Hell
so
yeah.
here's the closing speech. It's a 20-minute speech. I'm not obviously reading all 20 minutes. I'm reading like the last 3 paragraphs.
Yes.
I'm reading it, to show you kind of the weird guy Nixon was.
Yeah.
How much of a fighter he was till the end. Like, you're resigning the presidency. Everyone thinks you're a crook. Like, we've proven the collusion and like the secret cash fund and the intimidation and the using the powers of the federal government to like bully your opponents and stuff like that. And you're speaking to like a room of true believers. It's giving absolute bunker vibes.
Yeah.
And here's this. I'm going to do the last, just little section. As I leave, let me say, and this is an example I think you should remember. This example is not his own. This example is an example of Theodore Roosevelt losing his wife and daughter or niece on like the same day.
Oh, my God.
Right. That's the example Nixon
Jesus.
is referencing, not his own.
Yeah.
We think sometimes when things happen that don't go the right way, we think that when you don't pass the bar the first time. I happen to, but I was just lucky.
Okay.
I mean, my own writing was so poor, the bar examiner was like, we have to just let this guy through. We think, like, you're at the end of your farewell speech.
And you're talking about how the bar should have denied you?
Like, with this as historical context, our tangents have never been that egregious.
No. Wow.
We think that when someone dear to us dies, we think that when we lose an election, we think that when we suffer a defeat, that all is ended. We think, as Theodore Roosevelt said, that the light had left his life forever. Not true. It is only a beginning, always. The young must know it. The old must know it. It must always sustain us, because greatness comes not when things go always good for us, but the greatness comes, and you are truly tested, when you take some knocks, some disappointments, when sadness comes, because only if you have been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. You're going to have that reaction a lot over the next 2 paragraphs, the last 2.
Weird.
And so I say to you on this occasion, as we leave proud of the people who have stood by us and worked for us and served this country. We want to thank you. We want you to be proud of what you have done. We want you to continue to serve in government, if that is your wish. Always give your best. Never get discouraged. Never be petty. Always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them.
What?
And then you destroy yourself. You kept a list of political enemies. What the fuck are you talking about?
Dude,
so we leave with high hopes, in good spirit, and with deep humility, and with very much gratefulness in our hearts. I can only say to each and every one of you, we come from many faiths and pray perhaps to different gods, but really the same God in a sense. But I...
Bro!
What are you doing? What are you...
This man has not slept in a week.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah.
But I want to say for each and every one of you, not only will we always remember you, not only will we always be grateful for you, but always you will be in our hearts and you will be in our prayers. Thank you very much. Richard Nixon, August 9th, 1974.
That was a weird way to leave, man.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Super weird speech. And you watch the speech, and for whatever reason, the way they film it, Nixon's at the mic and his wife, Pat Nixon, is back behind him, but to his left, which means she's also lined up in the shot.
Right.
So it's like Richard Nixon, Pat Nixon, and she does not look good.
Oh,
like,
no.
She's not crying or anything, but you can tell she cannot figure out how to settle her face.
Right.
Because she's experiencing all these horrific emotions.
Yeah.
And like she's very public, and like
Yeah.
I think she is very much aware of the shame she feels.
Yeah.
And doesn't have the public reputation that Richard needs to
Yeah.
have to like preserve the reputation. So she can just kind of experience everything.
Yeah.
And they're about to, as soon as the speech is done, walk out onto the White House lawn, get into a helicopter and like fly away, and President Gerald Ford will
Yeah.
take over. And it's just a very weird speech.
That's
And
wild.
so he leaves August 9th, 1974.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald Ford becomes president, only president to be born in Nebraska.
Oh,
Gerald Ford was born in Omaha,
Oh,
but then
Jesus.
represented Western Michigan, and we don't need to talk about that afterwards. But Gerald Ford, like 2 months later, September, October, November 1974, offers Richard Nixon a full and complete pardon
For fuck's sake.
for any crimes that he committed. And he said, I know Americans are going to have a lot of different reactions to this decision.
Hey, kiddo.
Yeah. Hey, I know that's a wild thing I'm about to say. But it's time that America firmly closes this chapter of its history and we start to move forward.
Okay.
And the only way we can move forward is if this whole thing kind of gets put to rest.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pardon President Nixon. And he does. And it tanks his popularity.
Yeah.
Ford loses the 1976 election to Jimmy Carter, who, peanut farmer from Georgia, is just God's honest gift to earth. Who, I mean, will then continue to have his own issues that Nixon and also create a weird issue for the dairy industry. But like that's as we kind of start to fill out the American history.
Oh, wow.
But that's how the Watergate scandal ended 2 presidencies, is Nixon's in 74
and then Ford's
2 years later. So my final end cap is this.
Wow.
More than 40 people were indicted for things tied to the Watergate scandal or things the Watergate scandal like uncovered.
Resulted in, yeah.
At least 3 people served 1.5 years of jail time. Actual jail time, not like sentenced to 1.5 years, served at least actually like 18, 19, 20 months of jail time.
Wow.
For their work around this stuff. And then finally, including the Attorney General. America's former Attorney General served 1.5 years.
Hear that, Pam Bondi?
Yeah, true. Is that our current Attorney General?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, okay. I'm sorry. I avoided a lot of news during the cabinet hearings.
That's fair.
Lastly, President Richard Nixon died on April 22nd, 1994. I'm not the reincarnation of Richard Nixon. Thank God. I was alive for a year when that happened.
Oh, my God.
Because of heart disease.
Okay.
And it was certainly one loud bump in the night.
In the night. Okay.
And that is the story of Watergate. I mean, obviously, there's always so much to say about Watergate. That's a version. In my mind, this was a tight 90-minute episode. It kind of spiraled out from me, but I think in a fun way.
Vibe.
The spiral was a fun spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Good.
What are you thinking for title?
Oh, I had completely forgotten about
Because
that.
I have ideas.
Oh, what are your ideas?
I wrote them down.
Oh, okay,
Because I
cool,
was
cool,
worried
cool.
I would forget them.
Let's talk about them off air. Does that work for you? Oh, no. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
You don't want them to hear our shitty first ideas?
Sometimes I kind of want them to hear it off air because I'm not always proud of what I come up with on my first swing. Go ahead. I can't wait to hear them.
Okay. What was the first one? I need to fix okay. Wait, hold on. Saladgate was the first one I came up with. Because it's real crime.
Funny, but I don't know if that's gonna work.
Is that Jello salad? The other one is water under the gate.
I think water under the gate.
Yeah,
I really like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the closing speech and then you'll record the title.
Okay.
All right. Hey, friends, thanks for sticking with us. We obviously had a wonderful time. You can find us on social media where we are Well I Laughed, basically across the board. If you're looking for additional content, you can find us on Patreon where we are Well I Laughed podcast. If you have a listener story that would go well with Bump in the Night or our next episode
within these walls,
not between these walls, within these walls, please email them to wellilaughdpod@gmail.com or submit them through our website, wellilaughed.com. And finally, if you are looking for that special gift, for that special menace, nuisance, or girlfriend.
Grant's been recording a lot of them.
I've been recording a lot of cameos, and it's an art form, and I'm leaning into it.
We have 2 more to record tonight.
I've been getting a lot of like, haha, hey, we have like 3 hours to get this done. Can you do it? And I'm like, in between 2 things, I'm like, I can pull over. Yeah, that's fine.
I offered to do any of them, and you were like, I got it.
I'm too much of the Midwest. If you ask me to do something, I know I need to do it. Cameo. Find us on Cameo.
I don't know how to help you with that.
I don't want to be helped.
Okay, good. So you're just going to keep doing cameos.
I'm stressed at the time, happy afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Love you.
I'm going to put you on my list of political enemies.